Chapter 709. As time passed, a total of 18 nine-star celestial emperors gathered on the island. This number completely shocked Chu Bei. The 18 nine-star celestial emperors formed a circle of their own, discussing the even more profound emperor's Tao. Chu Bei naturally joined this circle. He couldn't influence them, and they couldn't discover him. He became a listener, listening to the nine-star celestial emperors talk about the emperor's Tao. But as he listened, Chu Bei's expression changed. His eyes were filled with deep shock and disbelief. They were talking about a supreme emperor. This supreme emperor's Tao was to prove one's Tao through commerce. It had millions of treasures, and millions of emperors' Taos. Chu Bei was stunned. Wasn't this so-called commerce very similar to the All-Heavens commerce city that the system had given him? Using commerce to prove one's Tao, didn't the so-called treasures refer to the treasures of the All-Heaven Mall? But he was absolutely certain that the 18 nine-star celestial emperors weren't talking about him, because from what they said, the master of this emperor's Tao had long since broken through the nine stars realm and stepped into an even higher, illusory realm. Chu Bei was puzzled. Perhaps this question could only be answered when the system woke up. Hum hum hum. Suddenly, amidst a strange buzzing sound, light runes appeared around Chu Bei. Everything in his line of sight began to crack. So we're not in the same space-time, and not in the same era. Chu Bei saw the river of time and space-time runes. Gradually, he came to understand that he and the Bamboo Sea Island had only coincidentally overlapped space-time, or it could be said that he had mistakenly entered the front end of the river of time. However, the power of time was something that even nine-star celestial emperors couldn't detect. Whoosh, the sea churned, the bamboo forest bobbed, and the island gradually became illusory. The figures of the celestial emperors discussing Tao on the island became transparent, and disappeared with laughter. Everything returned to normal. It was like a dream, but it was so real. Chu Bei continued to float in the sea, following the waves aimlessly. No one knew where he was going. The river of time surged. Just like that, Chu Bei didn't know how much time had passed before he accidentally entered another space-time. Just like the immortal islands he had encountered before, the immortal emperors he encountered this time were also discussing the Tao. There were 9 stars immortal emperors among them. They were pursuing a higher realm above the 9 stars. Time passed. Every 100,000 years, Chu Bei would enter such a space-time. Personally experiencing everything in that space-time would not affect the normal flow of that space-time. Even a 9-star celestial emperor would not be able to detect his presence. It wasn't until the 99th space-time that Chu Bei found that he could move his limbs again. He had successfully stood up. Although he still couldn't mobilize the power in his body, and the system had not awakened, he was happier than when he had received the reward of 200 drops of Source Heaven power. Where are these powerhouses? Chu Bei muttered to himself as he recalled the 9-star celestial emperors he had seen. Becoming a true immortal meant one could exist forever with heaven and earth, let alone a 9-star celestial emperor. At this realm, even if they killed each other, they should not have disappeared in the long river of time. Even if they had passed away, there should be ancient legends in the records of the great domain of the Chaos Heavens. However, the truth was that there was no information about these celestial emperors in the records of the great domain of the Chaos Heavens. Could it be related to the great catastrophe? Chu Bei seemed to recall something, and his pupils suddenly shrank. In the battle above high heavens, Celestial Emperor Yen Tian and Celestial Emperor Qian Tsang had mentioned the great catastrophe, but they were quite afraid and did not disclose it. The great domain of the Chaos Heavens. It had been 100,000 years since Chu Bei disappeared. In the past 100,000 years, the structure of the great domain of the Chaos Heavens had not changed much except for the great change in the sky market, which was one of the strongest 9 domains. However, there was an earth-shattering change in high heavens. On the list of forces, the All Heavens shop was still ranked first, but in fact, after 100,000 years, the number 1 force had become the floating island, which was ranked 33rd on the list of forces. All of this was because a mysterious transcendent force had found the floating island. No one knew the origin or details of this mysterious force, but it was true that it had sent a 9-star celestial emperor expert to the floating island. To be precise, in addition to the 9-star celestial emperor, there were 2 8-star celestial emperors, 3 7-star celestial emperors, and 5 6-star celestial emperors. It was said that when the 9-star celestial emperor appeared on the floating island, the sect master of the Dragon's Spring sect and the celestial emperor of the Divine Path Mountain had both awakened from their seclusion and fought with the 9-star celestial emperor. However, both the sect master of the Dragon's Spring sect and the celestial emperor of the Divine Path Mountain were seriously injured in the battle with the 9-star celestial emperor and entered seclusion again. It was precisely because of these powerful celestial emperors from the mysterious force that the floating island's influence skyrocketed, and its forces grew stronger and stronger. In the end, the floating island became the #1 force in high heavens by many experts. Even after so long, there are still many people talking about the deeds of the sect master of the All Heavens shop. But then again, why did the mysterious force send a celestial emperor to the floating island? As far as I know, it has something to do with the death of the sect master of the All Heavens shop. To be more precise, it's for the missing Emperor artifact. Even the Zero faction has given up on the Emperor artifact, so why is this mysterious force still so persistent? What is it? Sky Market died because of it, and the sect master of the All Heavens shop died because of it. Ever since the sect master of the All Heavens shop died, the All Heavens shop has been silent for 100,000 years. Although his name is still at the top of the power rankings, there is almost no news about him anymore. Yes, the All Heavens shop refuses to participate in all the ceremonies in high heavens. Even the Celestial Emperor lecture from 5,000 years ago, the All Heavens shop didn't send any Celestial Emperors. In high heavens, many great beings from the Emperor region were discussing the All Heavens shop. At the same time, in the Emperor region of the All Heavens shop, within the main hall of the All Heavens shop, several figures sat in a circle. Other than Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, Shi Hao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Golden Cicada, San Monk, Ao Lai, and Ancient Dragon Phoenix, there were 4 more people. 60,000 years ago, Hongmeng crossed the final hurdle and successfully stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm. 30,000 years ago, Linli stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm, and came from the Coiling Dragon Plane to the Primal Chaos Domain. 20,000 years ago, Luo Feng stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm, and came from the Devouring Star Plane to the Primal Chaos Domain. Right now, the 14 Celestial Emperors of the All Heavens shop were gathered together, discussing the results of the search for Chu Bei. None of them had any clues. Chapter 710. Could it be that Master has really fallen? It has been 100,000 years. If he's still alive, he must have returned by now. Xiao Yan let out a long sigh. As soon as he finished his sigh, his expression froze. Xiao Yan was not the only one. Chen Nan, Yi Fan, Tang San, and all the other celestial emperors in the Great Hall had a change in expression at this moment. Then, they all turned to look in the northwest direction at the same time. In the next moment, Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, and the other 14 celestial emperors appeared above the All Heavens shop at the same time. At this moment, a couple of figures appeared in the northwestern direction not far from the All Heavens shop. Their eyes landed on the spot where Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, and the rest were. Floating space, what's the meaning of this? Xiao Yan looked coldly at the red-robed man standing in the middle of the several figures in the northwest direction. Is there still no news about your master? You know that the force behind me is very obsessed with that Emperor artifact. The floating space celestial emperor looked calmly at Xiao Yan. What the force behind you is obsessed with has nothing to do with us. We only care about our master. As for the Emperor artifact, you can look for it yourselves. Xiao Yan's voice was indifferent. In the past 100,000 years, you have come to the All Heavens shop more than 100 times for the Emperor artifact. Every time you came alone. But why did you bring them with you this time? After saying that, Xiaoyan pointed at the 10 people on both sides of the floating space celestial emperor with a gloomy face. These 10 people were the 10 celestial emperors who had transcended the mysterious realm. Among them, there were 2 8-star celestial emperors, 3 7-star celestial emperors, and 5 6-star celestial emperors. Xiaoyan, they don't want to wait anymore. This time, it's different from before. I came alone. The floating space celestial emperor shook his head helplessly. What do you mean by that? Could it be that they want to attack us? Is it just because of the emperor artifact? If they're really obsessed with it, why don't they look for it themselves? Sun Wukong waved the Jingu Bang in his hand and stared coldly at the floating space celestial emperor. Don't forget that Master saved your life in the Emperor Fallen Sea. Are you biting the hand that feeds you? The floating immortal emperor heaved a sigh of relief. What do you think I can stop them from doing? The floating sky immortal emperor mocked himself as if he was a puppet being manipulated by someone. We've already given you 100,000 years. Since you can't find it, we'll take over your territory. First of all, if we imprison you, perhaps your master will reappear with the Origin Tool catalog if he's not dead. Second of all, our people need a place to settle down when they return to the outside world. This territory of yours is not bad. At this moment, an 8-star celestial emperor behind the floating celestial emperor suddenly spoke. Although his voice was calm, it contained a terrifying celestial emperor's aura. If Master was here, you wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. Facing the pressure of an 8-star celestial emperor, Xiaoyan, Yi Fan, and the others were not afraid at all. Their auras began to rise. Although your master is strong, a 9-star immortal emperor is not invincible. Cultivation is profound, and the Tao you think of is not the end. The 8-star celestial emperor seemed to know something. He glanced at Xiaoyan, Yi Fan, and the others and harumphed coldly. Look in the direction of the All Heavens Shops Emperor province. That's the floating sky immortal emperor. And those mysterious celestial emperors. Why are they in the All Heavens Shops territory? Judging from their auras, the situation doesn't look good. Are the floating sky immortal emperor and the mysterious faction going to attack the All Heavens Shops celestial emperors? That can't be. 100,000 years ago, the All Heavens Shops Guild Master saved the floating sky immortal emperor. If it weren't for the All Heavens Shops Guild Master, the floating sky immortal emperor would have died in the formation in the Emperor Fallen Sea. If the floating sky immortal emperor led his people to attack Xiaoyan and the others now, wouldn't he be too heartless? Powerful auras burst forth from every corner of high heavens. Countless gazes were cast at the Emperor District of the All Heavens Shop. Their voices were filled with shock. The Origin Region. The most powerful region in the Chaos Multiverse. The Origin Sky Pavilion's headquarters was located in the central region of the Origin region, and it was the #1 Emperor-grade faction in the Chaos Multiverse. This day still came. I wonder if the All Heavens Shop can survive this calamity. Impossible. The All Heavens Shop's guild master isn't here, and Sun Wukong and Xiaoyan are only 2-star celestial emperors. How can they fight against that mysterious faction? Speaking of which, how many transcending factions are there? Where do they exist? Murmurs echoed from the main halls of the Origin Sky Pavilion's peaks, carrying the aura of Emperor Tao. In a certain region in the northwest, on a sacred mountain shrouded in immortal mist and surrounded by a river of stars, a graceful figure stood on the mountain peak. Her eyes were lively, as if they had never been baptized by heaven and earth, an endless great Tao intertwined in them. It's been 100,000 years. Is the All Heavens Shop going to enter everyone's sight again? How interesting. The graceful woman seemed to be able to see through thousands of great regions with a single glance, and she understood all karma. A smile appeared on her exquisite and flawless features. In a certain region in the southeast, in a barren land, there was no sign of life. There were only a few fallen leaves on the grayish-brown ground, and it was cold and lonely. Desolation and emptiness coexisted, and there were a few huge rocks scattered on the ground, which looked like tombstones at first glance. The sky was dim, and a faint black mist added a gloomy feeling to this barren land. It was quiet and dead, and there was no sign of life. Is that Emperor artifact called the Origin Tool Manual? What exactly is it? In the depths of the boundless earth, a distant and low voice sounded. In a certain region in the extreme north. Splash! This was a boundless sea of blood. It seemed to be the convergence of the blood of a supreme expert after his death, and it carried a pungent fishy smell. Amidst the soul-stirring splashing sound, a loud bang suddenly rang out from the sea of blood. The surface of the sea seemed to have been cut in half by a giant sword, and then a terrifying aura that surpassed that of an 8-star celestial emperor overflowed. Origin tool? What is that? A seemingly thin figure came to the surface of the sea from the depths of the sea, and a pair of cold eyes looked at the sky. Everything shook, and the long river of time collapsed. At this moment, even in the other most powerful regions, there were high-level celestial emperors who woke up from their seclusion, and they looked in the direction of the All-Heavens shop. On the other side, Chu Bei was still wandering aimlessly, like a walking corpse. As if there was some kind of guidance in his subconscious, he used 1,000 years to come to this space-time, to the immortal mountain that he was currently at. In front of him was a passage shrouded in sparkling light. Chu Bei walked forward, and the long river of time flowed behind him, carrying with it the sound of Emperor Dao. Chapter 7:11. When Chu Bei reached the end of the passage, he could not help but stop. When he saw everything in front of him, he was stunned and subconsciously took a deep breath. This was a terrifying battlefield. To be precise, it was a battlefield where the killing had ended and only corpses were left. The reason why Chu Bei was stunned was because every corpse on the battlefield was surrounded by Emperor Dao runes. Even though he did not know how long they had been dead, the corpses still had the aura of an immortal emperor lingering around them, and could not be touched. Just as Chu Bei was in a daze, an earth-shattering roar rang out from the battlefield. In the next moment, Chu Bei only felt a terrifying aura rushing towards him. At this moment, Chu Bei seemed to be in the battlefield of the immortal emperors. In his eyes there were many scenes of immortal emperors killing each other. It was the scene of the collapse of a great world. All kinds of Supreme Emperor Dao techniques were decreasing as the number of corpses increased. Chu Bei walked through the battlefield. Every time he passed by a corpse, he would pause for a moment. This was because he could use the corpse to feel the attacks that the corpse's owner had suffered before. Chu Bei squatted beside a corpse. Unlike the other corpses, this corpse gave him a very special feeling. Of course, its aura was far from that of the other corpses. What was even more special was that even though it had been dead for an unknown number of eras, Chu Bei could not see its appearance clearly. Curious, Chu Bei stretched out his hand and tried to push aside the hazy fog above the corpse's head to see the formation under the fog. But just as Chu Bei's hand landed on the fog, there was a buzzing sound and Chu Bei's body suddenly trembled. In an instant, the figure of a man in purple appeared in front of Chu Bei. The man in purple was not very tall, but his golden hair was scattered. Only his eyes were not covered by the fog. His gaze was as sharp as cold lightning, inexplicably chilling. He's clearly dead, but he still has such power! Even such a person can die? Looking at the blurry figure in front of him, Chu Bei's hair stood on end and he felt a sense of suffocation. He was absolutely certain that the figure in front of him was a supreme existence that surpassed 9 stars when he was alive. Chi La! All of a sudden, this terrifying phantom entered the space between Chu Bei's eyebrows. Chu Bei's body trembled. In that instant, he saw what the phantom had looked like when it was alive. He stood in the void, surrounded by boundless starfields. It was as if many ancient universes were revolving around him, and he was standing at the center of the world. As his golden hair fluttered, the galaxies behind him were destroyed and dimmed until they disappeared. He seemed to be fighting against some kind of power that he couldn't see clearly. In the end, he was defeated and fled with heavy injuries. In the end, he fell on this battlefield. Where is the end of the Tao? Chu Bei muttered to himself as he recalled everything that the person before him had experienced. His expression was a little absent-minded. Chi 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 chi. Before Chu Bei could ponder any further, strands of dim light flew out from the corpses in this mysterious and boundless battlefield. They were densely packed and swarmed towards Chu Bei from all directions. What made Chu Bei feel incredulous was that when these dim lights arrived in front of him, they actually lined up in an orderly manner and entered the space between his eyebrows in succession. Every dim light was a supreme emperor when they were alive. Chu Bei experienced these emperors' lives again and again. Fortunately, this was not a cycle of reincarnation. Every emperor was different when they were alive. Although this was not what Chu Bei wanted and he was experiencing the emperors' lives uncontrollably, he did not feel bored. In fact, during this process, he even witnessed countless emperors' daos. Vaguely, he seemed to have grasped the connection between thousands of emperors' daos. Of course, this connection was very faint. Just when Chu Bei thought he was about to grasp it, it quietly disappeared. Unknowingly, Chu Bei closed his eyes and his body lay horizontally in the sky above this battlefield. Several gloomy balls of light floated around him. It was a very strange scene. If there was an outsider present, they would definitely be shocked. That was because with just the naked eye, they could see that Chu Bei's body had become transparent. Every single bone was clearly visible, and they were emitting a beautiful fluorescent light. As for Chu Bei himself, at this moment, he felt as if his spiritual will had already left his physical body and was roaming the worlds of the Supreme Emperors one after another. What he did not know was that the seal on his own power seemed to be slowly opening. The power fluctuations that leaked out from nothing were also rising bit by bit, becoming stronger and stronger. At the same time, the turbid area in his sea of consciousness slowly became clear. He could vaguely see branches and leaves swaying and releasing clear light. As for the floating black brick, it also began to form a strange phenomenon. Above it, there were 18 vague phantoms. Although he could not see the exact appearance of the 18 phantoms, he could roughly judge that they were 18 different mysterious objects. In the great domain of the Chaos Heavens. In the Emperor district of the All Heavens shop, the atmosphere above the All Heavens shop became increasingly strange and silent. Countless experts looked over from all directions, and sighs could be heard from time to time. Xiao Yan, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, and the other celestial emperors of the All Heavens shop stood side by side, coldly staring at the 8-star celestial emperor from the mysterious transcendent force opposite them. Since you can't hand over the Origin Tool Manual and don't have the whereabouts of your master, there's nothing more to say. As the indifferent voice rang out, 130 drops of Genesis Heaven power appeared around the 8-star celestial emperor's body. This amount of Genesis Heaven power was comparable to celestial emperor Qianxing's. Sensing the Genesis Heaven power pressuring them, the faces of Xiao Yan, Sun Wukong, and the other celestial emperors of the All Heavens shop instantly darkened. Although they were a little solemn, they were not afraid at all. Boom! Chen Nan, Yi Fan, and the other celestial emperors burst forth with celestial emperor power at the same time, jointly resisting the Genesis Heaven power. A loud noise sounded. Including the floating celestial emperor and the others, a boundless world battlefield formed in the starry sky above the All Heavens shop. Yi Fan was at the very front. With a wave of his right hand, lightning containing celestial emperor power descended. Emperor Dao aura surged, blasting murderously towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Above Chen Nan's head, a dazzling expanse appeared. Endless light particles gathered into celestial emperor tribulation light, releasing chi-chi sounds. In front of Shi Hao, a giant hand appeared. The 5 fingers moved, tearing apart the heavens, slapping towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Around Zhu Beiji, yellow sand danced about, every grain of yellow sand carrying Emperor Dao symbols. Tang San's hands moved, all types of mysterious artifacts carrying Emperor might smashing outwards. Behind Golden Cicada, a great Buddha appeared, golden light dazzling. Terrifying scriptures appeared from its mouth, interweaving together to form a Buddhist staff, directly descending towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Sand Monk took action, snowflakes fluttering about, freezing the heavens, chilliness pervading the air. Aeolai took action, a scarlet-red expanse appeared. Within the red radiance, there were irregular scenes of ghosts weeping and gods howling. When the world battlefield formed, the 14 celestial emperors of the All-Heavens Shop took action at the same time, directly activating their most powerful attacks, attacking the 8-star celestial emperor together. Chapter 7:12. The strongest is only 2 stars. What's the point of having so many of them? A smiling voice drifted across the starry sky. Following which, the 8-star immortal emperor waved the 130 drops of source heaven energy around him and directly met the attacks of Xiao Yan's group of 15. Rumble! 130 drops of Genesis heaven power exploded and turned into a terrifying energy wave. It instantly annihilated the attacks of the 14 people, including Xiao Yan and the others. Pooh! 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 Xiao Yan and the others' arch-armors shattered as the Genesis heaven power invaded their bodies. Their faces turned pale as blood spurted from their mouths. Their breathing became chaotic as they fell to rock bottom. The outcome of the battle between Xiao Yan, Yi Fan, and the others against the 8-star celestial emperor had been decided in an instant. Even if the former had the advantage in numbers, the difference in cultivation base was too great. It was useless. Brother, don't you think it's too much to bully others like this? Just as the 8-star celestial emperor from the mysterious force was about to attack Xiao Yan, Yi Fan, and the others again, a deep and powerful voice sounded in the battlefield. Then, a figure appeared in front of Xiao Yan and the others. It's Celestial Emperor Lan Hui from the Genesis Heaven Pavilion! Why did he make a move? He has never interfered in the affairs of the major forces in high heavens. Perhaps Celestial Emperor Lan Hui can't stand it anymore. Celestial Emperor Lan Hui is also an 8-star Celestial Emperor. Since he has made a move, the crisis of the All-Heaven Shop must be resolved. The experts watching the battle exclaimed in unison when they recognized Celestial Emperor Lan Hui. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. The 8-star Celestial Emperor represented a mysterious transcendent force. Even some of the forces that were on good terms with the All-Heaven Shop did not dare to make a sound at this moment. However, they did not expect Celestial Emperor Lan Hui to intervene. What's the meaning of this? Are you trying to stop this Celestial Emperor? The 8-star Celestial Emperor from the mysterious force narrowed his eyes as he stared coldly at Celestial Emperor Lan Hui. It was as though he did not care about Celestial Emperor Lan Hui at all. If you need that Emperor artifact, go look for it yourself. What did this have to do with the All-Heaven Shop? Don't you think it's shameful for you to deal with a group of Celestial Emperors who have just stepped into the 2-stars realm? Celestial Emperor Lan Hui snorted coldly. He did not have the respect that he should have when facing the so-called transcendent forces. My business has nothing to do with you. The mysterious 8-star Immortal Emperor glanced at Immortal Emperor Lan Hui and said, Although the Origin Sky Pavilion is the strongest faction in the Great Regions, don't think that it's truly the strongest faction. We still have to fight when it's time to fight. Speak less. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui waved his hand, and several balls of Genesis Heaven power shot out from his body and hovered around him. As for the amount of Genesis Heaven power, it was the same as the mysterious faction's 8-star Immortal Emperor, 130 drops. Rumble! In an instant, a new world battlefield was formed. It was a battle between 8-star Immortal Emperors. Xiao Yan, Yi Fan, and the others shifted their gazes to Immortal Emperor Lan Hui as they watched the terrifying collision of Genesis Heaven energy. Their faces were filled with gratitude. Then, they looked at each other and immediately began to regulate their own injuries. How interesting. It actually turned into a battle between 8-star Immortal Emperors. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui really treats the All-Heavens Shop well. Could it be that Immortal Emperor Lan Hui has a close relationship with the All-Heavens Shop's sect master? Otherwise, why would he not hesitate to offend a transcendent faction? The surrounding cultivators began to discuss as they watched the terrifying battle between the two 8-star Immortal Emperors. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chu Bei's floating body suddenly fell from above the pile of Emperor corpses. With a loud bang, he created a deep pit on the ground. At this moment, the light hovering in front of Chu Bei had all disappeared. To be more precise, the light had entered Chu Bei's glabella and finally dissipated. In the deep pit, Chu Bei let out a long breath as if he had experienced thousands of reincarnations and awakened from a deep sleep. He slowly opened his eyes. It's like a dream. Chu Bei muttered softly as he felt the majestic power in his body that seemed to have been unlocked by a key and connected to his sea of consciousness. Host has gone to the otherworldly evil monarch plane and signed a contract with Jun Mo-sia. Host's reputation in the otherworldly evil monarch plane has reached 80. Side mission: Host has broken through the barrier between the otherworldly evil monarch plane and the chaos heavens. Hearing the system's voice in his mind, Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. The system had also woken up. In the next moment, Chu Bei stepped into the wheel of time and space. Otherworldly evil monarch plane. Tianxiang Empire, Jun residence. In the depths of the residence, in a rather lavishly decorated room, a young man lay flat on a huge bed. This young man looked a little immature. His face was a little thin, and his eyes were a little slender. He gave off the feeling of a pretty boy. But at this moment, the young man's eyes were tightly shut, as if he had fainted and did not have any consciousness. Suddenly, the young man opened his eyes and instinctively slammed his right hand on the bed. But just as he was about to jump up, his arm went limp, as if it was too weak to support his body weight. With a bang, he fell back heavily. In the next moment, the young man let out a shrill cry of pain. I'm still alive! I'm actually not dead! The young man quickly recovered from the pain. As he muttered to himself, a look of joy and excitement appeared on his face. Clang! At this moment, the door opened. A graceful figure seemed to have heard the commotion and hurriedly ran in. Young master, you're awake! What was that sound just now? What happened to you? The person who ran into the room was a young girl of 15 or 16 years old. She was dressed in a maid's outfit, and her voice was a little timid. Young master? Who are you? What's going on? Hearing the voice, Jun Mo-sia stared at the maid in front of him, then looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. At this moment, a wave of unfamiliar memories suddenly rushed up from the bottom of his heart. Pieces of unfamiliar information surged into his mind like a tide. In an instant, Jun Mo-sia felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned. Have I possessed a body and been reborn? And it's a completely unfamiliar world. Have I reincarnated without drinking Granny Ming's soup, or have I reincarnated in someone else's body? Jun Mo-sia came in front of the mirror and stared blankly at the face he had seen for the first time in a trance. For a long time, he did not move, as if he had lost his soul. Young master, are you all right? But just as the young maid reached out her hand and waved it in front of Jun Mo-sia's eyes, he suddenly cried out in ecstasy. Ha ha! Indeed, good people have good karma. Although I can't figure out what's going on, I'm still alive. I must have accumulated a lot of good karma in my previous life, which moved the heavens and gave me the opportunity to come back from the dead. Jun Mo-sia's cry of surprise was like a madman's cry, which frightened the young maid. She trembled and hid to one side, her pretty big eyes staring at Jun Mo-sia in panic. Chapter 713. Young master, don't. Especially when Jun Mo-sia walked towards her, the girl's petite body was trembling, and her face was incomparably pale. She looked like a frightened little quail. Obviously, the previous Jun Mo-sia was like a nightmare in the eyes of the girl. What kind of person did the previous owner of my body become? Looking at the frightened appearance of the girl, Jun Mo-sia shook his head and no longer paid attention to the girl. Instead, he composed himself and began to examine the condition of his body. However, this examination left Jun Mo-sia dumbfounded. His meridians were stagnant, his muscles were loose, his joints were stiff, and there were many injuries on his ribs. It could be said that this body was simply a waste. It was extremely bad. If I want to recover to the peak of my previous life, It would be impossible without 8 to 10 years. Jun Mosia sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. In his previous life, he was an assassin. Moreover, he was a super ace assassin who stood at the peak. Since his debut, he had never failed. His success rate was unparalleled. In less than 5 years, he had become the #1 assassin on the list of assassins. In addition to being the #1 assassin, his own bounty was also firmly at the top of the bounty list in his world. No one could shake it. No one dared to accept his bounty. No one could accept it because he was strong enough. He was a legend in the world of assassins. As the #1 assassin, Jun Mosia had his own style of doing things. But because of his style, the other assassins gave him the title of Evil Monarch. When Jun Mosia was still alive in his world, his name of Evil Monarch was a deterrent to all big and small forces. Although many people knew the name of Evil Monarch, almost no one knew what this #1 assassin looked like, whether it was a man or a woman. Well, since I'm here, I'll just take it easy. After a long sigh, Jun Mosia accepted his body. At least he was glad that he didn't possess a woman's body. Moreover, this body had the same name as him. As for the Jun Mosia of the past, he was just a good-for-nothing who idled about, loved ease, hated work, and only ate while waiting for death to befall him. In short, he was a typical parasite with no value. As for Jun Mosia's background, his grandfather, Jun Tian, was the Blood Orchid Grand Duke of the Empire. He was also the #1 figure in the military. His father, Jun Wuhui, had once been an imperial great general. 10 years ago, he had died on the battlefield. His mother had died of depression 9 years ago. His 2 elder brothers, Jun Mo and Jun Mo Cho, had died in a great battle 3 years ago. Her uncle, Jun Wui, had also been seriously injured in the war 10 years ago. Although he had managed to survive, he had been paralyzed from the waist down, and had been reduced to a cripple. The Jun family was one of the largest families in the Tianxiang Empire. However, it was a pity that Jun Mosia was the only one left in his generation. Moreover, he was a debauchee who didn't seek to improve himself and only knew how to idle around. Actually, if I think about it, being a second generation isn't that bad. Jun Mosia suddenly grinned as he recalled the various deeds of his previous master. However, just as he finished muttering to himself, a cold voice sounded from outside the door. Hedonistic second generation? It seems that our Jun family is going to decline in your hands. You are a disgrace to the Jun family. A wheelchair entered the room, and a thin middle-aged man in his 30s was sitting on it. He was leaning against a wooden support, and his legs were covered with a thick layer of satin. His pair of turbid and clear eyes were coldly staring at Jun Mosia. His eyebrows were like swords, and naturally carried an inexplicable cold and murderous aura. This servant will take her leave! Seeing the thin middle-aged man in the wheelchair, the young girl bowed respectfully and then trotted out of the room. Jun Mosia sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the middle-aged man who had come in. Although the other party was physically disabled, his eyebrows revealed a powerful aura. He must have been a decisive general who commanded thousands of soldiers and horses. He must have been an unyielding hero. Third uncle? Jun Mosia tried to recall the memories of his third uncle, Jun Wui, who was sitting in a wheelchair. Then, he tried to call out to him. In Jun Mosia's memory, Jun Wui was a useless person who was sitting in a wheelchair waiting for death to claim him. But at this moment, Jun Mosia could feel a murderous aura coming from the other party's body that even he was moved by. Jun Mosia stared at the middle-aged man in the wheelchair, and his face was full of astonishment. The other party's murderous aura was unique to an iron-blooded soldier who had been through hundreds of battles all year round. He had fought his way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. It was like a peerless sword that would never be buried by dust even if it was broken. It exuded an aggressive aura. However, because of the wheelchair's existence, this peerless sword was hidden in its scabbard. Do you still see me as your third uncle? Jun Wui glanced at Jun Mosia and coldly snorted. You still have the older generation to protect you. But when they're gone, how will you survive? The other families will give you some face if the older generation is still around. But when they're gone, you'll be nothing but a waste in their eyes. Jun Mosia didn't take Jun Wuyi's words to heart. He knew that Jun Wuyi was actually concerned about him, and that Jun Mosia had expected better from him. Third uncle, even if the older generation is gone, won't you still be protecting me? Jun Mosia asked. Are you mocking me? Jun Wuyi's face darkened. Third uncle, I have a way to cure your legs. Jun Mosia pointed at Jun Wuyi's legs. Hearing Jun Mosia's words, Jun Wuyi shook his head and turned his wheelchair to leave. Obviously, he still thought that Jun Mosia was making fun of him. Looking at Jun Wuyi's lonely back, Jun Mosia wanted to say something, but hesitated. He wanted to chase after him to say something, but in the end, he didn't take a step. He could indeed cure Jun Wuyi's legs, but with the cultivation of his previous life, he couldn't do it with his current body. Judging from the situation of his current body, it would take him at least 10 years to reach the level where he could cure Jun Wuyi's legs. This was also the reason why he didn't catch up with Jun Wuyi. After all, it would take him at least 10 years. If it wasn't for this terrible body, I wouldn't have to start from scratch. Jun Mosia let out a long sigh. But just as he was sighing, a huge boom rang out above his head. Then, a pitch-black circular gap appeared. Looking at the purple-clothed man slowly falling from the gap, Jun Mosia's pupils suddenly shrank. His mouth opened wide, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Chapter 7:14. You, who are you? Jun Mosia came back to his senses, and subconsciously swallowed his saliva as he stared blankly at the man in purple. This man in purple was Chu Bei from the Xianhuang continent. While Jun Mosia was sizing up Chu Bei was also sizing up Jun Mosia. After a few seconds, Chu Bei seemed to recognize Jun Mosia, and the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. Jun Mosia looked at Chu Bei's malicious smile, and inexplicably shivered. This was a feeling he had never felt in his previous life, even when facing hundreds of assassins. Who the hell are you? What do you want to do? Jun Mosia looked at Chu Bei with great vigilance, and then looked at the black hole that hadn't disappeared yet. His body tensed up, and he stepped back. Little guy, is this body still used to it? Chu Bei suddenly opened his mouth with a playful tone. You, how did you know? Jun Mosia heard Chu Bei's words, and he felt as if he was facing a great enemy. Don't be nervous. Chu Bei looked at Jun Mosia with a smile. You're still alive, and it's not a coincidence, and it's not because you've accumulated good karma in your previous life. Then what is it? Jun Mosia asked, and his tense body relaxed, but his eyes were filled with confusion. It was I who brought you to this world in passing. Chu Bei coughed softly and lied in an incomparably calm manner. What? You brought me back from the dead, and brought me to this strange world. Jun Mosia's face was full of surprise, and he exclaimed. In your previous life, you were called the evil monarch. What is evil? It is said that you killed an evil trafficker, but couldn't find the victim. So you had no choice but to ask for a copper coin from the little girl who was being trafficked. You also said that you had never done business without a reward, and that there would be no exception. What is evil? There was once when you cleared out all the paper towels in the latrine. When the old martial arts teacher who taught you when to squat, he found that there was no paper towel and asked him to send some paper towels over. In the end, you asked him for 50 taels of gold as a reward. Why would he submit? It's because you called all your fellow apprentices to the entrance of the latrine that day, and even invited a woman from the outside to visit. Stop talking. I believe you. Jun Mosia quickly came back to his senses as he listened to the man in front of him narrate the story of the evil monarch in his previous life. At this moment, he completely believed what the other party had said. Otherwise, how could the other party know what he had done in his previous life? Master, I know that there's always someone better than you out there. Just like you, With your ability to bring the dead back to life, you're definitely an existence that stands at the peak of the martial way. Jun Emosia had completely relaxed his state of mind. Facing Chu Bei, he no longer had the slightest bit of vigilance. With a flattering expression on his face, he said, "But why can't you resurrect me on the spot? Why do you insist on living in this world?" He even possessed a crippled body. "This is a blessing, not a curse," Chu Bei said with a smile, and pointed a finger between Jun Emosia's eyebrows. In the next moment, Jun Emosia's body trembled, and a translucent ripple flew out from between his eyebrows. That was the spirit. To be precise, it was the spirit of Jun Emosia's previous life. Suddenly, the scene before Jun Emosia's eyes changed. In the blink of an eye, he followed Chu Bei and appeared in a vast starry sky. Chu Bei strode across the starry river, and Jun Emosia followed behind Chu Bei in the form of a spirit. You think that you've already stood at the peak of the strong in your previous life, but in reality, on the path of cultivation, you can't even be considered an ant. Chu Bei's indifferent voice fell. With a wave of his right hand, countless stars around them shifted positions, and a soul-stirring river of stars surged over with a monstrous aura. Rolling nine-colored lightning intertwined in the starry sky, and all kinds of gorgeous light exploded, extremely dazzling. Not only that, all kinds of strange phenomena appeared. There were ghosts crying and gods howling, fairies dancing in the sky, dragons soaring in the sky, and the evolution of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. Looking at the strange phenomena around him, Jun Emosia was speechless. His entire body froze, like a block of wood. Not to mention the memories of his current body, even in his previous life, he had never experienced such a scene. Inconceivable, unimaginable. At this time, with a buzzing sound, the vast starry sky disappeared, and Jun Emosia's spirit returned to his body. Looking at the environment in the room, Jun Emosia regained his senses. When he looked at Chu Bei again, his throat twitched. He knew that the scene he had just experienced was not an illusion. It was real. The strength of this purple-robed man was at a height that was far beyond his imagination. Do you want to reach this seat's height? Do you want to have this seat's methods? Chu Bei looked at Jun Emosia with a smile on his face. He was very satisfied with Jun Emosia's shocked expression. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Jun Emosia was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted and nodded heavily. Yes, of course. In his previous life, Jun Emosia was a person who pursued the peak of martial arts. Otherwise, he would not have become the #1 assassin in just 5 years. This seat is fated to accept you as a disciple. What do you think? Seeing Jun Emosia's attitude, Chu Bei went straight to the point. Hearing this, Jun Emosia was startled, but he quickly cupped his hands and replied, This disciple greets master. To become this seat's disciple, you need to do a short ceremony. Saying this, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and a proxy ring appeared above his palm. Disciple, drip a drop of blood into the ring. Yes, master. Jun Emosia looked at the proxy ring, and under the other's signal, bit his index finger and dripped a drop of blood into the ring. The host has successfully signed a first-level proxy. Jun Emosia. A first-level proxy gift package has been issued. When the signing was completed, the system sound rang in Chu Bei's mind. Jun Emosia, since you've already addressed me as your master, then I'll give you a gift. Chu Bei opened the gift bag, which contained a sparkling and translucent pill. It smells so good. Jun Emosia took the pill and sniffed it. Then, he and Chu Bei glanced at each other before popping it into their mouths. Master, what did you feed your disciple? I seem to have mastered a magical energy. Jun Emosia opened his eyes wide. Puff! Puff! The moment Jun Emosia finished eating the Phantom Beast pill, a little blue mist began to appear on the surface of his body, and his body began to change. Almost at the same time, a series of mechanical sounds rang in Chu Bei's mind. Contractor Jun Emosia, signed successfully. Master, my body has changed. Am I still human? Looking at his changing body, Jun Mosia swallowed his saliva and looked at Chu Bei in horror. At this moment he had turned into a bird beast made of blue flames, with a wisp of red flames on top of his head. Chapter 7:15. Don't panic. Chu Bei calmly looked at Jun Mosia and said lightly, "The fruit you ate earlier is called the Phantom Beast Pill. Now you have the ability of a Phantom Beast. As for this ability, you will have to explore it. With the improvement of your development, your strength will also undergo earth-shaking changes. As for your current form, it is called the Immortal Bird. It has a terrible recovery ability. In a fight, this form is almost invincible. Master, I feel the magic of this flame. It's amazing." Gradually, Jun Mosia seemed to have found the trick. With a thought, he switched between the Immortal Bird and the human form several times. During this process, he also deliberately cut his right arm in the human form, causing blood to flow. However, when he turned into the Immortal Bird, the blue flame instantly healed the wound, leaving no scar. "Maybe it won't take 10 years. I can cure third uncle's leg injury now." After the initial control of the Phantom Beast Pill, Jun Mosia seemed to have thought of something and an eager expression appeared on his face. "Master, I am going to find third uncle." Jun Mosia respectfully looked at Chu Bei. "Let's go. I will accompany you." Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and smiled. Jun Residence Lobby. Jun Zhantian sat at the head of the table. Although he was over 60 years old, his hair and beard were still black and shiny, making him look like a man in his 40s. "Stinking brat, it's one thing for you to fool around outside, but now you even dare to mock your third uncle? Do you know how many military exploits he had on the battlefield when he was your age? How many enemies he had beheaded?" Seeing Jun Mosia come to the lobby, Jun Zhantian didn't even look at Chu Bei and shouted at Jun Mosia. His dignified face was full of anger. Jun Zhantian was born poor and became a general at a young age. He dominated the world and made the enemy soldiers of various countries tremble in fear. Not only was he excellent in civil and military strategy, but he was also one of the few Sky Xian experts in the Tianxiang Empire. His character was calm and determined. He had always been calm and collected. From a humble pauper to the current Blood Orchid Grand Duke, it took him less than 40 years. Although it was said that the times created heroes, looking at the entire history of the continent, there were very few of them. On the battlefield, Jun Zhantian didn't bat an eyelid in the face of the enemy's million-strong army. But he would fly into a rage whenever he saw his only surviving grandson. Jun Zhantian really couldn't figure it out. With his bloodline and high-pressure management, how could there be such a good-for-nothing among the younger generation? The grandson in front of him, whom he loved and hated at the same time, was neither proficient in literature nor martial arts. When he picked up a book, he fainted, and when he heard that he was practicing martial arts, he ran away. Other people's sons and nephews were either talented or had already entered the right path in their cultivation of Xianqi. At the very least, they were at the 6th level, or above. On the other hand, his precious grandson's Xianqi cultivation was only at the pitiful 2nd grade, and that was after he had spent countless treasures on him. The main reason why he was so angry today was that the other party had started to use Jun Wuyi's legs as an excuse. Thinking of this, Jun Zhantian's tyrannical aura became violent, and the anger in his eyes was about to burst out. "Father, it's not worth it to get angry over this kid." Seeing that Jun Zhantian was about to go berserk, Jun Wuyi quickly opened his mouth. Although he also hated iron for not becoming steel, he still didn't want to see Jun Mosia get beaten up. "Grandfather, I didn't laugh at third uncle. I really can cure third uncle's legs," Jun Mosia said. Hearing Jun Mosia's words, Jun Wuyi's face became gloomy. He sighed and looked at Jun Zhantian. "Father, you should hit this kid hard." However, just as Jun Zhantian's fist was about to fall on Jun Mosia's body, the latter's body unexpectedly turned into a blue flame. The flames surged and turned into a blue bird. This. Looking at Jun Emosia, who had suddenly turned into a blue flame bird, Jun Zhan Tian's fist stopped in the air, and his face suddenly changed. His whole body seemed to have been hit by a bolt from the blue, and his face was full of confusion. Sitting in a wheelchair, Jun Wui was also the same. He looked at the blue flame bird in a daze, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His face was at a loss, and he looked like a clay sculpture. Jun Emosia's change came too suddenly, and caught them off guard. "What's going on?" Jun Zhan Tian and Jun Wui were dumbfounded. Their brains seemed to have lost the ability to think, and they stood motionless like wood, staring blankly at the scene in front of them. "Third uncle, grandfather, don't worry, I'm in the form of an immortal bird." Jun Emosia's voice sounded, and the next moment, he spat out a blue flame from his mouth, and in a flash, it engulfed Jun Wuyi's legs. Seeing his legs being burned by the flame, Jun Zhan Tian's expression suddenly froze. But just as he was about to stimulate his xianqi to extinguish the flame, Jun Wuyi raised his hand to stop him. "Father, don't move! My legs are starting to feel, and I can feel the pain." Jun Wuyi's expression began to become excited, and his expression was incomparably excited. "I can feel that the energy in this flame is healing my legs that have been crippled for 10 years. "What? You can feel it?" Hearing Jun Wuyi's words, Jun Zhan Tian's face was full of astonishment, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Jun Wuyi nodded heavily. "This flame really has a miraculous effect." The blue flame burned, and the joy on Jun Wuyi's face became more and more intense. The expression in his eyes when he looked at Jun Emosia also changed from disappointment to surprise, and then to gratification. After an unknown amount of time, with a bang, a tyrannical aura burst out from Jun Wuyi's body. His hands patted the wheelchair, and the wheelchair split open, and he stood up. Then, his feet stepped on the void, and he actually bounced a few meters away in the hall. "Ha ha, I never thought that I, Jun Wuyi, would be able to leave the wheelchair one day." Jun Wuyi cheerfully walked back to Jun Zhan Tian's side, and tightly grasped the latter's arms, his body slightly trembling. "Father, your child is fine, really fine." "Well, I saw it, your father saw it." Unknowingly, Jun Zhan Tian, who had remained calm in the face of the enemy's million-strong army, had become red-eyed. The murderous aura that had been on the battlefield for a long time had completely disappeared. What was left was a joyful expression that an old man should have when he saw that his child, who had been crippled for 10 years, could stand up again. "Emosia, how did you do it? And what's the matter with this immortal bird?" After being happy, Jun Zhan Tian and Jun Wuyi recovered and looked at Jun Emosia, their eyes full of confusion. In their eyes, Jun Emosia was a complete debauchee waste. He couldn't study, and he couldn't practice martial arts, but he was proficient in eating, drinking, and gambling. However, after experiencing the scene just now, they found that Jun Emosia wasn't exactly what they thought. Suddenly, they found that they couldn't see through Jun Emosia. Chapter 716. "Grandpa, third uncle, I don't want to hide it anymore." Jun Emosia took a deep breath and looked up at a 45-degree angle. He sighed. "When I was 3 years old, I met a master who accepted me as his disciple. But because of the secret method I practiced, I couldn't show it in front of outsiders, so I could only cover it up by pretending to be a good-for-nothing. But recently, I succeeded in my cultivation, and my master finally allowed me to show my strength." Jun Emosia sighed faintly at this point. "Grandfather, third uncle, do you know how lonely Emosia has been all these years?" Jun Zhan Tian and Jun Wuyi listened to Jun Emosia's words, and their eyes were full of regret, as if they regretted that they didn't see this grandson of theirs who had been enduring all this time. As for Chu Bei, the corners of his mouth twitched, and after glancing at Jun Emosia, he cursed in his heart. "Emosia, Grandpa has wronged you all these years." Jun Zhan Tian stepped forward and hugged Jun Emosia, who had changed back to his normal appearance. Monsieur, what is your real strength? Jun Wui asked. Master gave me the inheritance, and it can't be measured by the ordinary cultivation system. So, I don't know what level I am at now. Jun Monsieur shook his head. Then let third uncle try it for you. Jun Wuyi's voice fell, and he punched towards Jun Monsieur, and a tyrannical xianqi spurted out from the surface of his fist. Seeing this, Jun Monsieur's eyes narrowed, and without the slightest hesitation, he directly used the ability of the mythical beast fruit to transform into the phoenix form, and clawed forward. Bang! A low sound was heard. Jun Monsieur, who had transformed into the phoenix form, was shaken back, but he didn't suffer the slightest injury. Gold Xian! Jun Wui retracted his fist, and stared at Jun Monsieur with a face full of astonishment. Wui, you're not joking! Monsieur is a gold Xian! Jun Tian laughed like a man when he saw Jun Wui solemnly nod his head. Heavens, you've finally opened your eyes! A 17-year-old gold Xian, the #1 person in the Tianxiang Empire. My Jun family has a successor. Jun Monsieur looked at Jun Monsieur again. After experiencing Jun Wuyi's punch, he truly felt the horror of this phantom beast pill. He had just swallowed it, and hadn't even had the time to develop it. But he already possessed the strength of a gold Xian. Monsieur, where is your master? All these years he has trained you to be so outstanding. We must thank him properly. You wouldn't have your current strength and means if it weren't for him. And Wu Yi's lead wouldn't have healed either. Jun Tian seemed to have thought of something. So, he quickly opened his mouth to speak. Grandpa, the master I speak of is far away on the horizon, but he is right in front of us. Jun Monsieur said. Jun Tian and Jun Wui stared blankly when they heard this. Then, their gazes fixed on Chu Bei's body, and their mouths opened wide. You are Monsieur's master! Jun Tian's eyes were filled with shock as he swallowed his saliva. He simply couldn't connect this 20-year-old youth with Jun Monsieur's master. He thought that the person who could teach Jun Monsieur such a heaven-defying method must be an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years and hadn't cared about the affairs of the world. Chu Bei looked at Jun Tian and Jun Wui, and nodded slightly. Third uncle, who was the one who injured your leg? Jun Monsieur asked Jun Wui. Then, he looked at Jun Tian. Also, how did my parents die? Jun Monsieur searched through the memories of the previous owner of his body, but couldn't find any answers to these two questions. Jun Tian and Jun Wui looked at each other when they heard Jun Monsieur's question. After a short discussion, they shook their heads. Monsieur, it would be better if you don't know with your current strength. Our enemies are too strong, too strong. Too strong? How strong are they? Jun Monsieur asked. In front of them, my strength is nothing. If you want to know, then you must first enter the Earth Xian realm. Jun Tian still didn't answer Jun Monsieur's question. Then, Jun Tian looked at Chu Bei and asked very politely. Excuse me for asking, but what is your strength? Jun Tian and Jun Wui were not the only ones who were curious. Jun Monsieur also looked at Chu Bei. He was also curious about his cheap master's cultivation. In the Xian continent, Xianqi was ranked from the 1st to the 9th level. Above the 9th level was the Silver Xian, followed by the Gold Xian, Jade Xian, Earth Xian, Sky Xian, and above the Sky Xian was the Spirit Xian. Above the Spirit Xian was the Supreme. Of course, there were even higher levels of cultivation above the Supreme. When one Xianqi reached the Earth Xian realm, they could extend their life with the help of Xianqi. When one reached the Sky Xian realm, they could live for 150 to 200 years. If they could go one step further and reach the Spirit Xian realm, they could extend their life, but they couldn't live for more than 350 years. When one reached the Supreme realm, it was possible to live for 500 years. As for the Supreme realm, it was natural that they could live even longer. It was said that when one's cultivation reached a certain level, they could return to their youth. It was impossible to tell their true age from their appearance. Judging from Chu Bei's methods, Jun Zhan Tian naturally didn't think that the other party was really a youth in his 20s. He must have reached the realm of returning to his youth. As for how strong he was, Jun Zhan Tian didn't know. At least with his Sky Xian realm strength, he couldn't return to his youth. My cultivation? Without a comparison, I don't know. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. He didn't deliberately want to be mysterious. This was indeed the truth. Hearing this, Jun Zhan Tian and Jun Wui looked at each other and didn't ask any more questions. They obviously thought that this question was Chu Bei's taboo. Ta ta ta! Just as Jun Zhan Tian was preparing to entertain Chu Bei, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the hall. Then, a panicked soldier ran in, gasping for breath. Don't you see that there are guests here? How can you lose your composure like this? Jun Zhan Tian looked at the soldier who ran in and shouted. Master, something big has happened outside. The sky is falling. The soldier took a deep breath and said quickly. Say it in one breath. Jun Zhan Tian frowned. The Xian beast tide is coming. A large number of Xian beasts are running out of Tian Fa forest. They are attacking and destroying the city like crazy. It's chaotic outside, the soldier said anxiously. What? The Xian beast tide. Our Tianxiang Empire has never had anything to do with the Xian beasts of Tian Fa forest. How can they invade us? Come, let's go out and take a look. Just as he shouted, Jun Zhan Tian's Xianqi burst out, and he stepped out of the hall. His speed was extremely fast, and Jun Wui followed closely behind. Master, how can we miss the fun? Jun Moxia looked at Chu Bei. But before he could finish speaking, Chu Bei interrupted him. Then, he waved his sleeve and disappeared from the hall. Chapter 717. All kinds of terrified screams could be heard in the Tianxiang Empire's imperial city at this moment. The originally peaceful streets were now filled with people who were fleeing with big and small bags on their backs. Among them, there were also soldiers in exquisite armor who were running towards the easternmost side of the street. Jun Zhan Tian's speed was very fast. Every time he overtook an army, the leader of the army would salute him respectfully. Jun Zhan Tian arrived at the border between the Tianxiang Empire and the Tian Fa forest in less than a quarter of an hour. Rumble! As far as the eye could see, countless Xian beasts were madly swarming towards the human domain from the Tian Fa forest. It was a black mass of beasts. They seemed to have received some kind of order. Their roars shook the sky, and the earth shook violently. Groups of capable soldiers were holding spears in one hand and shields in the other at the edge of the imperial city. They were resisting the Xian beasts without fear of death. Look! General Jun is here! General Jun is here! These Xian beasts won't be a problem. The soldiers who were desperately resisting the Xian beasts cheered excitedly when they saw Jun Zhan Tian arrive. It seemed as if they had found their savior. Bang! Jun Zhan Tian soared into the sky, and a tyrannical aura burst out. He appeared directly in the middle of the Xian beast's army. Jun Zhan Tian was like a fierce tiger in a flock of sheep. Several Xian beasts' bodies exploded with each punch, and turned into piles of minced meat. Bang! 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 Perhaps they were afraid of Jun Zhan Tian's methods. These intelligent Xian beasts began to avoid Jun Zhan Tian, and took a detour towards the imperial city. Look! His Majesty has also arrived! The Emperor of the Tianxiang Empire had also arrived at the edge of the imperial city. His face was full of worry. General Dugu has also joined the battle. The soldiers became more and more excited with the arrival of more and more experts from the imperial city. Their morale soared. Third Uncle Wu, how did your legs recover? At this time, a somewhat playful girl of 15 or 16 years old came to Jun Wuyi's side. Her mouth was wide open, and her finger was pointing at Jun Wuyi's legs. Her face was full of astonishment. Xiao Yi, third uncle will explain it to you in a while. Jun Wui rubbed Duga Xiaoyi's head and jumped into the battlefield. Scum of the Jun family, what are you doing here? Aren't you afraid that those Xian beasts will eat you? Duga Xiaoyi looked at Jun Emosia with a face full of disdain. She then looked at Chu Bei and said, This person looks very unfamiliar. Is he the debauchee you just made friends with? Jun Emosia was about to get angry when he heard Duga Xiaoyi's words. But he was startled by Chu Bei's words. Don't be angry. This is one of your 8 future wives, Chu Bei said with a smile. What are you talking about? Bah! Why would I, Duga Xiaoyi, marry this debauchee? Even if I were to go blind and break my leg, it would still be impossible. One of the 8 wives? A toad still wants to eat swan meat. Duga Xiaoyi glared fiercely at Chu Bei. Her face was filled with anger, as if Chu Bei's words were a great humiliation to her. Master, are you telling the truth? Jun Emosia took a deep breath and said, This little girl looks pretty good. If what you say is true, then this disciple will have to teach her a good lesson in the future, so that she won't dare to be rude to you again. Scum of the Jun family, if you dare to speak nonsense again, I will cut off your tongue. Duga Xiaoyi drew a thin sword from her waist and waved it in front of Jun Emosia's face. Jun Emosia smiled and no longer paid attention to Duga Xiaoyi. Instead, he looked at the battlefield. Roar! The invasion of the Xian beasts began to slow down as more and more experts joined the battle. More and more Xian beasts were killed by the experts. Elder Jun, do you know what's going on? Why are these Xian beasts invading my Tianxiang Empire? Tianxiang's emperor looked at the incomparably brave Jun Zhan Tian on the battlefield and asked, Your Majesty, I'm afraid you don't know. It's not just our Tianxiang Empire. All the empires bordering the Tianfa forest have been invaded by the Xian beasts. Jun Zhan Tian hadn't spoken when a warrior replied. What? This is a full-scale disaster. Is the Tianfa forest crazy? Do they want to declare war on the entire human race? Tianxiang's emperor frowned deeply. The Xian beasts won't stop if you don't hand over our Tianfa emperor. At this moment, a vigorous voice resounded like thunder. The next moment, a 5-meter-tall strong figure appeared on the battlefield. He was in human form, but his whole body was covered with exuberant hair. Beast King Big Bear! Jun Zhan Tian, Duga Xing, and the other experts of the imperial city were startled when they saw the appearance of the robust figure. They were full of astonishment. The moment Big Bear appeared on the battlefield, the crazy Xian beasts prostrated themselves on the ground as if they were kowtowing to him. Bear King, are you the one who instructed them to invade our human territory? Jun Zhan Tian and the other warriors looked at Big Bear with a dignified expression. Big Bear was one of the 12 beast kings of Tianfa forest. He was a genuine great master. In their Tianxiang imperial city, the strongest person was only a Sky Xian expert. In the eyes of a great master, this didn't constitute any threat. When you hand over our emperor, we will withdraw our troops. Big Bear's voice was cold. Tianfa emperor? How could it be in our human territory? Jun Zhan Tian questioned. You'll have to ask the Shuehun Manor. Big Bear shouted coldly. His voice was filled with monstrous anger. Since it's the Shuehun Manor's matter, you should have just gone to them. Why did you invade our Tianxiang imperial city? Jun Zhan Tian was dissatisfied. This is the matter of the entire human race. Big Bear's body erupted with a terrifying aura, shaking the void and making a chi-chi sound. You humans have been looking down on our Tianfa forest for the past few years. Now you even dare to have ideas about our emperor. If she hadn't failed to break through and was in a weakened state, how could you have succeeded? Big Bear's voice was filled with anger as he punched out. Suddenly, a terrifying Xianqi rushed out, shaking a wave of Tianxiang imperial city soldiers and sending them flying. They spat out blood from their mouths. Big Bear, you've gone too far. You can't afford to offend the Shuehun Manor, so you're venting your anger on us. Jun Zhan Tian clenched his fists as his aura began to condense. Do you think the Shuihun Manor is in a good situation? If you can't see the Emperor, then all of humanity will be destroyed. Big Bear's eyes flashed with killing intent as he continued to attack, causing a large number of soldiers to die. Do you really think we're soft persimmons? Jun Jan Tian pulled out his sword. Old man Jun, don't be impulsive. This is a great master. Dugushin quickly restrained Jun Jan Tian from attacking. A mere Sky Xian expert is nothing but an ant. Big Bear looked at Jun Jan Tian with disdain. His feet stepped into the void, and he turned into a divine rainbow. Carrying a terrifying Xian Qi, he bombarded Jun Jan Tian. Chapter 7:18. Not good! Old General Jun is in danger. On the battlefield, the pupils of all the generals contracted rapidly. Big Bear was very fast, arriving in front of Jun Jan Tian in almost an instant. However, just as Big Bear's huge fist was about to land on Jun Jan Tian's chest, everyone heard a crisp cracking sound. Big Bear's figure inexplicably stopped. The space where he was standing had actually split open with a long and thin gap. At this moment, whether it was Big Bear or Jun Jan Tian, it was as if they were suddenly imprisoned by a force. What's going on? Looking at the scene on the battlefield, all the generals' faces were filled with confusion. The intelligent high-level Xian beasts crawling on the ground widened their eyes, their expressions filled with confusion. Humans and Nemesis Forest are on the same side. Your current actions are too extreme. Suddenly, a calm voice sounded in everyone's ears. Bang! Following the sound of this voice, the imprisoning force in the space where Big Bear and Jun Jan Tian were in disappeared. The two of them flew out inexplicably at the same time. Who is it? Big Bear's vigorous shout reverberated between heaven and earth. Just as everyone was looking around to find the person who had spoken, a man in purple appeared out of thin air above the battlefield. Who is he? Could it be that he was the one who spoke just now? He was the one who saved old General Jun. Is he the supreme expert of our human race? The gazes of all the generals were fixed on Chu Bei's body. They discussed animatedly, guessing Chu Bei's identity. Scum of the Jun family, he's not that. Recognizing the man in purple above the battlefield, Dugu Xiaoyi stuttered incoherently. She stammered for a long time, unable to form a complete sentence. Humph! You still know that humans and Nemesis Forest are on the same side. Then take a look at what you're doing now. You actually dared to kidnap His Majesty when he was weak after failing to break through. I don't even know what you're planning. Big Bear's anger soared to the heavens. Once he finished speaking, he condensed a terrifying aura and launched a tyrannical attack at Chu Bei. Bang! Unfortunately, in front of Chu Bei, Big Bear was really no different from an ant. Before he could get within 10 meters of Chu Bei, he was sent flying by a force. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. During this entire process, Chu Bei did not even raise his eyes. It could be said that he did not move at all. Big Bear is injured. He's one of the 12 beast kings of the Nemesis Forest, a supreme being expert. Seeing this scene, all the battle generals were dumbstruck. Just who is this purple-clothed man? The generals looked at Chu Bei with even more curiosity and respect. I will give you justice for what you did to the Beast Emperor of Tian Fa. Chu Bei did not pay attention to the discussion of the battle generals below. After glancing at Big Bear, he pointed a finger. Immediately, countless blue flames flew out from his fingertips. These blue flames surged and turned into hundreds and thousands of undying birds that flew toward the battlefield below. Wherever these undying birds passed, whether it was the heavily injured human soldiers or the Xian beasts of the Nemesis Forest, their injuries were all healed at a terrifying speed. This is too unbelievable. Is this even a human's ability? All right, they're all healed. Witnessing their dying companions being healed by the undying birds, the other soldiers and battle generals were all stunned at the same time. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that there was someone in this world who had such remarkable abilities. Justice? How can you give us justice? We don't know if His Majesty is dead or alive. The longer this drags on, the greater the danger she'll be in. Big Bear glanced at the healed soldiers and Xian beasts below. After a flash of surprise, he looked at Chu Bei and spoke. Chu Bei did not pay attention to Big Bear. He only waved his sleeve, and a ripple instantly enveloped the entire battlefield. In the next moment, the Emperor of the Sky Incense, Jun Zhantian, Jun Wuyi, Dugashing, and the other generals, as well as Big Bear, felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. Then, everything in their line of sight changed. This is the territory of the Shuehun Manor. He actually took us from the Tianxiang Imperial City to the Shuehun Manor in an instant. This is not the ability of a great master. Could it be that he is in existence above the great master level? The battle generals came back to their senses. When they recognized their current location, they stared at Chu Bei with astonishment written all over their faces. Look below! 7 Xian Beast Kings! The Shuehun Manor and the Nemesis Forest have already started an all-out war. Could it be that the Shuehun Manor really took away the Emperor of Tianfa? Jun Zhantian, Dugashing, and the other battle generals were floating in the air. When they saw the scene below, their pupils suddenly dilated. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the outer area of the Shuehun Manor had been turned into ruins. The intensity of the battle was far beyond what had happened in the Tianxiang Imperial City. Innumerable 7th and 8th level Xian beasts were fighting with the Shuehun Manor's experts. Rivers of blood were flowing, and wails of grief could be heard everywhere. The most intense battle was between the 7 great masters of the human race and the 7 Xian beast kings of the Nemesis Forest. Blizzard's Silver City's City Lord, Blizzard Supreme Han Feng Shui, Heaven's Equal Peaks Heaven Seeking Supreme Mo Wen Tian, Cold Blood Supreme Lei Wu Bei, Shinxiai Empire's Life and Death Supreme Shichang Xiao, Blue Supreme Meng Hongchen, who lives in seclusion in the Blue Light Sea, Prairie Eagle God Solitary Falcon, Hurricane Sword God Feng Wan Yun. Jun Zhantian and Dugashing recognized the 7 great masters of the human race. They looked at each other and announced their identities. Snake King, do you really want to fight to the death? Heaven-seeking Supreme Mo Wen Tian looked at a woman with a graceful figure and shouted coldly. This battle will only end when I see my elder sister. Snake King Green Hunter replied expressionlessly. You insist that the Shuehun Manor has kidnapped the Emperor of Tianfa. But you've searched every nook and cranny of the Shuehun Manor. And you haven't found any trace of the Emperor of Tianfa, Cold Blood Master Lei Wu Bei said. That's right. You people of the Nemesis Forest want to frame my Shuehun Manor, and use that as an excuse to invade the entire human race, the great elder of the Shuehun Manor shouted. The complexions of the 7 Xian Beast Kings became extremely ugly when they heard this. Some of the Xian Beast Kings even transformed into their true forms. They opened their bloody mouths with ferocious expressions on their faces. Since your Shuehun Manor has nothing to do with this, then where is Li Ju Tian? When he kidnapped my emperor, I even fought with him. But I wasn't a match for him. That's why he kidnapped my emperor, a spirit Xian beast said. Li Ju Tian? That's ridiculous. That guy failed to cross his tribulation 3 years ago, and died. How could a dead man kidnap the Emperor of Tianfa? This reason is too absurd. That's right. Everyone knows about Li Ju Tian's death. Our human army won't be afraid of you if you insist on fighting to the death. The faces of the great masters of the human race became gloomy when they heard the spirit Xian beast's words. Their anger soared to the heavens. Chapter 719. Li Ju Tian is dead? How is that possible? The one who fought with me that day was definitely him. As he spoke, the divine profound realm Xian beast in human form tore open his clothes and revealed his chest. There was a sunken palm print on his chest. The inside of the palm print was pitch black. Isn't this the bloodthirsty palm of your Shuehun manor? The divine profound realm Xian beast pointed at his chest and shouted coldly. You're really unscrupulous in order to find a preposterous reason. The Shuehun manor's great elder's eyes narrowed as he spoke. The other great elders frowned as they looked at the palm print on the Xian beast's chest. In the next moment, he soared into the sky and attacked the Xian beast without holding back. Kill! Chase away these invading Xian beasts! After the great elder of the Shuehun manor made his move, the other Shuehun manor experts could no longer restrain their killing intent. We won't rest until we're dead! Save our emperor! The 7 beast kings of Nemesis Forest were also enraged. They roared as their eyes became bloodshot. Let's stop here. However, just as the 2 armies were about to fight again, a calm voice came from the sky. The voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to have some kind of magical power. It clearly reached everyone's ears. Whoosh! At this moment, whether it was the human side or the Forest of Nemesis Forest's army, everyone subconsciously raised their heads to look at the sky. Who is that guy? Beside him is the Emperor of Tianxiang and a group of generals from the Tianxiang Empire. Look! The one on his right is the Beast King of Tianfa, Big Bear. How could someone from the Tianxiang Empire be with the Beast King of Tianfa? Could it be that the Tianxiang Empire surrendered to the Forest of Nemesis? Damn it! If that's the case, then they're a disgrace to the human race. The gazes of the group of human experts were fixed on Chu Bei. Then, they recognized the Heavenly Incense Emperor and the Beast King, Big Bear. Their brows furrowed tightly. King Bear, why are you with a human? Seeing the scene in the sky, the other Beast Kings of Nemesis Forest questioned with gloomy expressions. There are some things that I can't explain in a short time. Let's wait for now. Big Bear looked at the other 7 Beast Kings, then pointed at Chu Bei beside him and gave his response. The other Beast Kings of Nemesis Forest looked at each other when they heard Big Bear's words. They then looked at Chu Bei with even more confusion. They knew Big Bear very well. It could be said that he was the one with the most violent temper among them. But he was able to keep his composure at this moment. The 7 great supremes of the human race looked at each other, as a strange look appeared in their eyes. It was as if the scene before them was not what they had imagined, the Tianxiang Empire surrendering to the Forest of Heaven's trial. Their emperor was indeed robbed by Li Ju Tian. Chu Bei's words were like heaven-shaking thunder. What did you say? You, a human, actually helped the Forest of Heaven's trial to frame my Shuehun manor. 3 years ago, the death of the old manor lord was known to the world. How did he kidnap the emperor of Tianfa? This guy must have betrayed the human race. Kill him as well. The experts of the Shuehun manor stared at Chu Bei with eyes full of resentment as they reacted. Some of the Spirit Xian experts became aware of the gaze of the great elder of the Shuehun manor. They seemed to have understood the meaning behind his gaze. So, their imposing auras burst forth from their bodies as they attacked Chu Bei. Chu Bei's expression didn't change in the slightest as he looked at the dozens of Spirit Xian experts from the Shuehun manor. He merely shot a glance at them. Suddenly, the bodies of those Spirit Xian experts froze in midair. Then, they exploded with a bang. This entire process could be said to have happened in the blink of an eye. The Spirit Xian experts of the Shuehun manor didn't even have time to issue mournful screams. Piles of flesh and blood fell from the sky. And the air was filled with a nauseating smell of blood. The 7 great masters of the human race, and the 7 beast kings of the Forest of Heaven's trial were stunned as they witnessed this scene. They stared at Chu Bei as if they had lost their souls. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Their faces were full of shock. They hadn't even seen how Chu Bei had attacked. But these dozens of Spirit Xian experts had died a violent death. They were great masters. But they couldn't have done such a terrifying thing. How can this be? The great elder of the Shuehun manor trembled as he smelled the smell of blood in the air. He looked at the purple-clothed figure in the sky, and an indescribable feeling of dread emerged in his heart. The Emperor of the Sky Incense, and Jun Jian Tian's expressions changed the least. They had already seen Chu Bei's methods before this. First, he had injured the Beast King Big Bear, as if he was blowing off dust. Then, he had carried them across hundreds of kilometers in an instant. Moreover, they were certain that the purple-clothed man would have already died if he had wanted to kill the Beast King Big Bear. "Who the hell are you?" The heavenly-seeking Great Master Mo Tian, the cold-blooded Great Master Lei Wubei, the azure Great Master Meng Hongqin, and the solitary falcon subconsciously opened their mouths to ask. Chu Bei glanced at these great masters of the human race. But he didn't give a response. The great masters of the human race shuddered when they met Chu Bei's gaze. In fact, they felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They remained silent, and didn't ask any further questions. The 7 beast kings of the forest of heaven's trial exchanged glances. Then, they seemed to have come to a unanimous decision. So, they didn't take any action for the time being. Bang! The battlefield gradually calmed down. Suddenly, an explosion sounded in the sky above the Shuehun Manor. In the next moment, the sky seemed to have been forcefully torn apart by a terrifying force, and a pitch-black hole appeared there. The great masters of the human race and the beast kings of Tian Fa didn't wait for them to react. Then, they saw 2 figures fly out of the hole. And they arrived on the battlefield with a schwa sound. "My Emperor! Elder Sister!" Big Bear, Snake King, Green Hunter, and the other beast kings of Tian Fa saw the appearance of these 2 figures. Then, they fixed their gazes on one of them. They condensed a dreadful imposing aura at the same time. However, the 8 beast kings of Tian Fa were about to join forces to kill the other figure. But their bodies were suddenly confined by an invisible force. The 8 beast kings of Tian Fa looked at Chu Bei. They knew that this was his doing. "Li Ju Tian! He's not dead! He's the one who kidnapped the Emperor of Tian Fa! His fall 3 years ago was fake! He deceived the world! Damn it! The entire human race had almost started an endless war with the Tian Fa forest because of him." The 7 great masters of the human race frowned as they recognized Li Ju Tian. They were burning with anger. The great elder of the Shuehun Manor's complexion became extremely unsightly. It seemed as if he had known that Li Ju Tian wasn't dead. Chapter 720. "No wonder I couldn't find you! The Shuehun Manor was hiding such a secret space," the Snake King shouted. "Li Ren, what's going on? I was so close to success. But I was interrupted at the most critical moment, and failed at the last step." Li Ju Tian looked coldly at the great elder of the Shuehun Manor. His voice was filled with anger. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body was covered with demonic lines. It seemed as if he was on the verge of going mad. That graceful figure had her eyes closed, and her face was pale without a trace of blood. One would have thought that she was dead if not for the faint fluctuations of her aura. "Manor Lord, he's the one who's disturbing you. Moreover, his strength." The Shuehun Manor's great elder hastily pointed his finger at Chu Bei when he saw Li Ju Tian's ice-cold eyes. But Li Ju Tian interrupted him with a cold snort. "Just a little bit more and I'll be able to step into that higher realm. But you interrupted me at the most critical moment. You deserve to die. I'll tear you to shreds." Li Ju Tian glared at Chu Bei. His entire body was surging with a murderous aura. Li Ju Tian crossed his hands and waved them. His palms were curled up with a black blood aura, and released a frightening aura. Boom, boom, boom! Li Ju Tian's figure flashed, and appeared in front of Chu Bei in the blink of an eye. "The human race and the Tian Fa forest belong to the same camp. But you didn't hesitate to pit the human race against the Tian Fa forest for your own selfish reasons. You kidnapped the Emperor of Tian Fa when she failed to break through, and attempted to absorb her strength to complete the breakthrough. Such a crime cannot be forgiven. You must die." Li Ju Tian's palms were about to hit Chu Bei's head when the latter's calm and indifferent voice drifted in the air. Chu Bei pointed his finger, and Li Ju Tian's dreadful offensive came to a standstill. Then, his body seemed to have been injected with an unbearable majestic force. His palms exploded with a cracking sound. Then, his arms exploded. Then, his entire body exploded. He turned into a pile of flesh and blood just like those spirit Xian experts had done before. Dead? Li Ju Tian is dead! The great masters of the human race were startled as they witnessed this scene. In fact, they became even more absent-minded. The deaths of dozens of spirit Xian experts had been enough to shock them. However, Li Ju Tian's death had left them shocked to an even higher level. Li Ju Tian was the strongest among them in terms of strength. He was at the peak of the great master realm. However, even though he was so powerful, he was no different from an ant in the eyes of the mysterious purple-clothed man above. He was easily killed with a raise of his hand. In other words, as long as the mysterious man wanted to, the life and death of these so-called human race supremes could be decided with a single thought. Thinking of this, the group of human race supremes immediately swallowed their saliva, and their gazes towards Chu Bei were filled with deep respect. Bear King, who is he? Could it be from the Three Holy Lands? But why would the Three Holy Lands help Tian Fa Forest? They aren't kicking us when we're down. We're grateful that they're just spectators. The complexions of the 7 Xian beast kings of the Tian Fa Forest became better when they saw that Li Ju Tian had been killed. Then, they looked at Big Bear and inquired about Chu Bei's origins. Big Bear was aware of the 7 Xian beast kings' gazes. So, he shook his head to indicate that he didn't know about Chu Bei's origins. Chu Bei turned his head to look at the great elder of the Shuehun Manor after he had disposed of Li Ju Tian. Then, a beam of light shot out from his eyes before the great elder could react. The great elder of the Shuehun Manor turned into nothingness under the gazes of countless people. It seemed as if he had evaporated into thin air. Gulp! The great masters and the human race supremes swallowed their saliva as they saw this scene. They fell into silence. The human race and the Tian Fa Forest coexist. I'll kill anyone who dares to act so despicably. Chu Bei's indifferent voice reverberated in the world as he swept his gaze over the human race supremes. The human race supremes looked at each other as they heard this. They became even more silent. Chu Bei then looked at the extremely weak emperor of Tian Fa. His aura was fluctuating intermittently. Then, he raised his hand and waved it. The emperor of Tian Fa's aura began to strengthen under the shroud of the blue light. His pale face gradually became rosy, and started to recover at a frightening speed. The emperor of Tian Fa opened his eyes after a few seconds. His aura also stabilized. Elder sister, you're awake! Great! My emperor is fine! The 8 Xian beast kings of the Tian Fa Forest cried out in excitement as they saw the graceful figure wake up. Wasn't I captured? Moreover, my hidden illness has disappeared. What's going on? Mei Shuyan looked at the Snake King with a puzzled look in her eyes. Elder sister, is your hidden illness healed? The Snake King's face was full of joy. She then narrated the ins and outs of the matter to Mei Shuyan. Thank you very much for saving me, senior. Mei Shuyan cupped her fists towards Chu Bei as she listened to the Snake King's words. Her words were full of gratitude. Chu Bei nodded. Then, he stretched out his hand and pointed at Mei Shuyan and the Snake King. You two have a close relationship with my disciple. So, it's natural for me to help him as his master. Your disciple? Close relationship? Mei Shuyan and the Snake King looked at Chu Bei. They sized up Jun Emosia. Then, they looked at Chu Bei in confusion. But we don't know this disciple of yours. Mei Shuyan and the Snake King weren't the only ones who were confused. Jun Emosia was also puzzled. Master, what do you mean by that? I've calculated that there'll be 2 of your harem in the future. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Senior, you must be joking. Mei Shuyan and the Snake King's faces turned cold when they heard Chu Bei's words. Jun Emosia smiled foolishly. Thank you for your kind words, Master. Senior, are you from the 3 Holy Lands? Mei Shuyan looked at Chu Bei and asked. The Three Holy Lands? What's that? A spirit Xian expert asked the Great Master after hearing Mei Shuyan's question. The Shuehun Manor is already a top-notch force in your eyes. But you don't know that there's always a higher mountain. And the Three Holy Lands are that higher mountain. The cold-blooded Great Master Lei Wubei faintly said. 9,000 years ago, the entire Xian continent was in chaos. Of course, powerful experts emerged one after another in that kind of environment. As the saying goes, the times create heroes. And heroes create the times. However, at the peak of their prosperity, a great change occurred in the continent. And the Three Holy Lands appeared at that time. The expressions of the humans became more serious when they heard this. They knew that they would soon learn the secrets of the Xian continent from the cold-blooded Great Master. Do you know about the Pillar of Heaven's mountains? The Great Master asked. Of course. A spirit Xian expert nodded. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains is the highest mountain in the Xian continent. It's located in the southernmost part of the continent. It's said that the mountain is extremely high. It stretches for hundreds of thousands of miles. It reaches straight into the blue sky. And it stretches from one side of the continent to the other. It's said that this mountain is the end of the sky. Even an eagle can't fly over it, let alone a human or an animal. It's been extinct for a long time. No one has ever been able to conquer it. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains connects to the sky. Even gods and devils can't climb it. Chapter 721. The cold-blooded Honorable looked at the divine profound realm expert with approval. Not bad. However, during that period of time, the Pillar of Heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed for some unknown reason. At that time, flames soared into the sky, and countless rocks flew up for tens of miles. Countless people who lived near the Pillar of Heaven's mountains died. Even the divine profound realm experts were unable to escape. Even the entire Xian continent was trembling. Heat waves that could melt gold and stone rushed out from many places. That was simply a catastrophe that affected the entire continent. After the catastrophe, the Xian continent lost more than 10 million people. It was also at that time that more than half of the side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains collapsed. Since then, the Pillar of Heaven's mountains that no one could climb, and no birds could climb, began to be climbed by peak experts. At this point, the cold-blooded supreme martial artist's voice became heavy. That is, when the first peak powerhouse of the human race ascends, the world will know that the end of the Xian continent is not just the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. There was another world behind the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Could it be that the catastrophe you mentioned earlier was related to the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains? A divine profound realm expert guessed. After that half of the mountain collapsed, two strange things suddenly came from the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Or, it should be said that they were humanoid creatures. The cold-blooded Honorable took a deep breath. These two strange creatures had just climbed over the Pillar of Heaven's mountains when they had a fierce conflict with the experts on our side. In the end, several divine profound realm experts joined hands and barely managed to kill them. However, not long after, more and more of these creatures climbed over from the other side of the mountain. Due to the large number of those creatures, even the divine profound realm experts on our side were unable to resist them. However, they knew that if they allowed these strange creatures to invade the continent where we live, they would cause unimaginable harm. Therefore, at that time, almost all the Xian experts on the continent gathered at the north of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains to stop those creatures. This was the Xian continent's first war for seizing the heavens. War for seizing the heavens! Hearing this name for the first time, the group of human experts couldn't help but repeat it. The cold-blooded supreme martial artist glanced at the people around him, who were listening intently, and continued. Since then, the entire continent has united. After several days of fighting, we have suffered heavy losses, but the same is true for those creatures of other races. In the end, they realized that they could no longer fight and began to retreat. That was the first war for seizing the heavens, and it was also the first time we defeated those foreign creatures. After experiencing the first war for seizing the heavens, the humans of the entire continent gradually realized that the profound practitioners below the Exalt realm were simply sacrificed in vain and were completely useless against these foreign beings. Even a divine profound realm expert wouldn't be able to injure the other party even if they used their full strength. Because of this, the battle became a battle between peak experts in the end. It was during the first war for seizing the heavens that the Xian continent formed the four greatest powers in order to effectively obstruct these strange races. They are the so-called three holy and one ferocious. The cold-blooded supreme martial artist glanced at the beast kings of Tian-Fa Forest. The three holy refers to the elusive world of immortals, the great golden city, and the illusory ocean of blood. And the one ferocious refers to Tian-Fa Forest. I thought you had forgotten about the war for seizing the heavens. Mei Shui-yen interrupted the cold-blooded supreme martial artist with a cold snort, and continued. At that time, our Tian-Fa Forest was the strongest. Even the three holy lands were dominated by Tian-Fa Forest. But after 9,000 years, how have the three holy lands treated us, your former allies? Hearing Mei Shuiyan's words, the great masters who knew some inside information fell silent. Looking at Chu Bei again, he was like a spectator from the beginning to the end, with a faint smile on his face. The cold-blooded supreme martial artist glanced at Mei Shuiyan and hesitated to speak. In the end, he changed the topic and continued to speak to the human experts. Since then, the three holy lands have continued to select experts from among the human experts. If someone's strength reached the bottleneck of the great master level, they would be taken in by the three holy lands, and then wait for the next war for seizing the heavens. During this period, these top experts were not allowed to go out except for diligently practicing Xian techniques. In their view, any slack would lead to failure in the war for seizing the heavens. And failure in the war for seizing the heavens would lead to a catastrophe for the entire human race. In this way, the three holy lands became the true concentration camp of the Xian continent's experts. In front of them, the so-called Shui Hun Manor and the world's #1 hall were not worth mentioning. But Tian-Fa Forest, after all, are Xian beasts, and naturally has the rules of elimination. Gradually, as time passed, the three holy lands became more and more prosperous. Under these circumstances, the originally strongest Tian-Fa Forest has now declined. After saying this, the cold-blooded supreme martial artist looked at the beast kings of Tian-Fa Forest with sympathy in his eyes. But now, the three holy lands of the human race have already forgotten their original intentions. They are fighting openly and covertly with each other. In order to increase their strength, they have even begun to secretly kill the Xian beasts of Tian-Fa Forest, suppressing us as their allies. In the first war for seizing the heavens 9,000 years ago, if not for our Tian-Fa Forest's help, you humans would have already perished. Now that you have become strong, is this how you treat your former benefactors? Mei Shuiyan rebuked in a cold voice. The seven supremes did not refute. The facts were indeed as Mei Shuiyan had said. The three holy lands of the present were indeed somewhat different in nature. We knew too little about the Xian continent in the past. Who would have thought that there was such an existence as the three holy lands? In the end, Tian-Fa Forest is still an ally of the human race. I will never kill the Xian beasts of Tian-Fa Forest in the future. Me too. We can't harm our allies. After listening to the cold-blooded supreme martial artist's narration, the group of human experts reacted and began to feel resentful towards Tian-Fa Forest's misfortune. Senior, although we hate the three holy lands, this does not include you. You saved my sister, so you are the benefactor of Tian-Fa Forest. The Snake King looked at Chu Bei, as if she was afraid that he would misunderstand. So, she opened her mouth to speak. When did I say that I was from the three holy lands? Chu Bei looked at the Snake King with a smile. His face had a somewhat playful look. Senior, you are really not from the three holy lands. With your strength, how could the three holy lands not look for you? Could it be that you have been hiding your identity all these years? Mei Shui Yan, Big Bear, and the other Beast Kings were not the only ones who were shocked by Chu Bei's reply. The 7 Supremes of the human race also revealed looks of disbelief. Chapter 722. With the strength that Chu Bei had displayed, the 3 Holy Lands should have come knocking on his door long ago. According to the rumors, there was once a great master who rejected the 3 Holy Lands, but his ending was not good, and he was reduced to a prisoner. In the end, he was forced to join a Holy Land. Senior, you may not be a member of the Holy Land now, but after today, you will be. Mei Shuiyan shook her head. The 3 Holy Lands have spies all over the Xian continent. You are so conspicuous today, it would be difficult for the 3 Holy Lands upper echelons to not know. So what? Chu Bei did not care at all. No one has ever dared to force me to join a force. Senior, although you are very strong, and even among the 3 Holy Lands, you are one of the strongest. However, you must know that there is always someone stronger. Mei Shuiyan sighed faintly, and reminded. If you still do not want to join the 3 Holy Lands, I have a hidden place in Tianfa Forest for you to hide. Chu Bei laughed. There are indeed people stronger than me in this world, but they are definitely not in the 3 Holy Lands. Senior, you are really too confident. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Mei Shuiyan shook her head. Not only her, the other Beast Kings and even the 7 Great Masters could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Obviously, in their opinion, Chu Bei said this because he did not understand the strength of the 3 Holy Lands. Chu Bei no longer paid attention to Mei Shuiyan, and turned his gaze to the Blizzard Silver City's city lord, Wind Snow, Han Fengshui. Sensing Chu Bei's gaze, Han Fengshui's body could not help but tremble, and he became inexplicably nervous. Senior, I have not offended you before, right? Han Fengshui trembled as he asked tentatively. Don't be nervous. Chu Bei smiled knowingly, and then called Jun Wui to his side, and said, Do you recognize him? That junior from the Jun family. Isn't he crippled? Why is he here? Han Fengshui obviously recognized Jun Wui, and his face was filled with astonishment. The Xiao family of the Silver Blizzard City had done to the Jun family in those days. And I'm sure that you're also aware of it. Although you stepped forward to stop it, it was too late. A perfectly fine Jun family was ruined because of that Xiao family. Chu Bei calmly looked at Han Fengshui, his indifferent voice coming out of his mouth. Senior, are you going to seek justice for my Jun family? With a plop, Jun Zhan Tian directly knelt in the direction of Chu Bei and kowtowed several times, his eyes red. So many years have passed since the conflict between the 2 clans. Senior, are you still going to interfere? Han Fengshui asked. Past? In my eyes, everything that the Xiao family has done to my Jun family seems to have happened yesterday. Every scene is still vivid in my mind. Just as Han Fengshui finished speaking, Jun Wui roared out, as if he had gone mad. Hearing Jun Wui's words, Han Fengshui frowned and his face turned ugly. Regarding the matter of those years, I have already made a decision. At this time, Chu Bei's calm voice sounded. In the next moment, Chu Bei raised his right hand and a huge palm print spread out, gently patting and grabbing in the direction of the Silver Blizzard City. Immediately, under the gazes of the crowd, the space in the direction where Chu Bei's palm landed began to distort. Rumble. In the midst of a buzzing sound, the void was torn apart, and a huge gap appeared. That's a mansion. My God! What's going on? Could it be that the mysterious expert directly captured a mansion from somewhere? The Silver Blizzard City's Xiao Mansion. Too terrifying. The Silver Blizzard City is hundreds of miles away from the Shuehun Manor, but the Xiao Mansion in the city was captured by the mysterious expert in an instant. What kind of heaven-defying method is this? After recognizing the mansion in the gap, the experts below opened their mouths wide and revealed a look of disbelief. Han Fengshui's pupils suddenly shrank as he stared blankly at the Xiao Mansion in front of him, his expression wooden. The scene in front of him was too unbelievable, completely subverting his understanding of the world. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the Shao mansion, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The experts in the mansion seemed to have noticed something strange, and all of them rose into the air. This is not the Silver Blizzard City! Our mansion is in the air! Who can tell me what's going on? The city lord is over there! After seeing the scene around them, the experts in the Shao mansion instantly widened their eyes. When their eyes swept over Han Fengshui, they immediately bowed with an incomparably respectful expression. Big brother, why are we here? The Shao mansion's master, Shao Changxing, flew out, but just as he finished his question to Han Fengshui, his eyes were fixed on Jun Wuyi. At first, he was stunned, then his killing intent filled the air. Jun family's second son, I didn't expect you to still be alive! Moreover, you can stand up! Shao Changxing's cold voice was filled with killing intent. Since the heavens have allowed me to see you here, then you are destined not to live in this world! With a cold shout, Shao Changxing clenched his right fist, and the tyrannical aura of a fourth-level spirit Xian exploded. His figure flashed, and he went straight for Jun Wuyi. Stop! Seeing this, Han Fengshui hurriedly stopped him. Big brother, I gave you face when you stopped me that time. But this time, I won't let him go! Shao Changxing ignored Han Fengshui's shout, and as the distance between them shortened, the power of his palm became more and more terrifying. However, just as Shao Changxing's terrifying palm was about to hit Jun Wuyi's body, an invisible force froze him in place, making him unable to move. Who is it? Sensing the abnormality in his body, Shao Changxing's expression froze, and he shouted a word. Senior, Changxing has gone through thick and thin with me for many years, I beg you. Bang! Han Fengshui immediately pleaded with Chu Bei, but before he could finish his words, Shao Changxing's body was directly destroyed by an invisible and terrifying force. Until his death, Shao Changxing did not even know where the invisible force came from. Dead? Family head is dead. No, impossible. Family head is a fourth-level spirit Xian. Who killed him? It must have something to do with that guy from the Jun family. Witnessing Shao Changxing's death, the Shao mansion's experts subconsciously retreated, and looked at Jun Wuyi vigilantly. Who were there back then? Chu Bei tilted his head and looked at Jun Wuyi, his voice calm. Jun Wuyi was stunned at first, but after regaining his senses, his cold gaze swept across the Shao mansion's experts. Every time he pointed his finger at a person, an invisible force would destroy the latter. Bang, bang, bang! The Shao mansion's experts exploded one by one, and the low sound of the explosion was like the accompaniment of the Grim Reaper, causing everyone's heart to tremble. This process continued until Jun Wuyi put down his right hand, and the death stopped. In just a few seconds, 80% of the Shao mansion's experts had died. Chapter 723. Haha, my Jun family's revenge has finally been avenged. My son, your spirits in heaven must have seen this. Our revenge has finally been avenged. Jun Zhantian suddenly raised his head and laughed loudly as he looked at the Shao residents. His laughter was laced with sobbing sounds. Senior, it's over. Thank you. Jun Wuyi knelt down in front of Chu Bei. His sincere eyes were filled with deep gratitude. The Silver Blizzard City's Shao family is on the verge of extinction. This mysterious expert has a close relationship with Tianxiang's Jun family. I must find an opportunity to pay a visit to the Jun family in the future. The experts who had witnessed the entire process breathed a sigh of relief. Even Shao Changxing's good friend, the Snow Master Han Fengshui, could only watch helplessly from the side. Don't worry, I'll send you another person. Chu Bei's voice carried a hint of a smile. Jun Wuyi looked at Chu Bei with a puzzled and perplexed expression, but the latter pointed his finger again. In the next moment, a beautiful woman in purple appeared in front of Jun Wuyi. Han Yan Yao! The daughter of the Snow Master, the continent's most beautiful woman. Could it be that the rumors are true? Jun Wuyi really fell in love with Fairy Yen Yao. After the group of experts recognized the purple-clothed woman's identity, their expressions became more and more stagnant and stiff. Wuyi, is it really you? Am I dreaming? The woman in purple stretched out her slender hand and carefully stroked Jun Wuyi's cheek. Her eyes reddened unconsciously, and tears fell from the corners of her eyes. It's me, this is not a dream. Jun Wuyi's voice was trembling. It was obvious that he had not reacted. I never thought that I would be able to see you again in this lifetime. Wuyi, your legs. Han Yen Yao's body trembled slightly. She seemed to have thought of something and quickly looked at Jun Wuyi's legs. Her eyes flashed with surprise and joy. It's already healed. Jun Wuyi stroked Han Yen Yao's hair and pointed at Chu Bei. Thanks to Senior's kindness, my hidden injuries have been cured, and my revenge has been avenged. Furthermore, to be able to see you again, I have no regrets in this life. Han Yen Yao looked in the direction Jun Wuyi was pointing at and saw Chu Bei. Just as she was about to bow and express her gratitude, she saw a familiar figure. It was also at this moment that Han Yen Yao's frail body trembled. Father! Father! Forget it, I won't interfere in the matters between the two of you. If you want to stay, then stay. If you want to go back to the Silver Blizzard City, then go back whenever you want. Han Fengshui shook his head helplessly. He sighed, and looked in the direction of Chu Bei. Then, he turned into a divine rainbow and flew in the direction of the Silver Blizzard City. Wuyi, Imperial Father, he agreed to us being together. Palace Master, can you see this person's cultivation level? The man in black pointed at Chu Bei and asked. Strange, strange. Duan Wuyi shook his head. But when he saw Chu Bei raise his hand and detain the Shao mansion, his pupils suddenly shrank. You go personally and bring 2 saints with you. You must bring this person to the elusive world of immortals before the supreme golden city and the illusory ocean of blood. Quick, you must be quick. Remember, you must use all means. Recovering from his shock, Duan Wuyi shook the gemstone scepter in his hand and said coldly, Yes, Palace Master. The man in black respectfully replied. His figure flashed and disappeared from the palace. One of the 3 holy lands, the supreme golden city. At the end of the Xianxian continent, there was a dreamlike city that looked like a fairyland. The city was filled with dense immortal energy. The mountains were green, the valleys were green, the waterfalls were flowing, the cranes were dancing, and the longevity apes were jumping happily. On top of each mountain peak, there were jade palaces connected together. It was like a poem or a painting, intoxicating. In the huge square, there were hundreds of figures sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Sizing up their auras, even the weakest of them was stronger than the Shuihun Manor's Li Ju Tian. City Master, you've come out! Along with the beautiful heavenly music in the sky above the square, the originally quiet square became even more deathly silent. At this time, the group of experts sitting cross-legged looked up at the jade palaces in the sky. They saw a man in black slowly flying over. Chapter 724. He had a beautiful face, limpid eyes, snow-white skin, waterfall-like black hair, and a slender and delicate body. These words were used to describe beautiful women, but it was not an exaggeration to use them to describe this green-robed man. His whole body was emitting a feminine aura, and if one felt it at a close distance, they would shiver inexplicably, as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. The green-robed man was called Butianxia, and he was the helmsman of the Supreme Golden City. Looking at your appearance, do you have something important to report? Butianxia's gaze fell on a white-robed man as he asked. City Lord, not long ago, an extraordinary guy appeared in the outside world. The white-robed man stepped forward with a respectful face, and quickly recounted the deeds of Chu Bei in detail. He killed the Supreme with a raise of his hand, and detained a mansion 100 kilometers away. Interesting. If this is true, his realm is really a mystery. After listening to the white-robed man, Butian Xian narrowed his eyes. Quickly go and bring him here, and verbally offer him generous temptations. You must make him join the Supreme Golden City. City Lord, what if he is taken by the other two? The white-robed man asked. Then bring more people over. If it is really as you said, then secretly kill them all, but remember, don't leave any evidence. Butian Xia let out a sinister laugh. I know what to do. The white-robed man bowed and quickly retreated. One of the three holy lands, illusory Blood Sea. The Dream Soul mountain range was originally an ordinary nameless mountain range at the end of the continent. However, because of the three holy lands' illusory Blood Sea, it became a special mountain range where peak powerhouses gathered. In the mountain range, one could see many peaks rising from the ground. On these peaks, there were many towering pavilions. In the central area of these peaks, there was an extraordinarily majestic hall, surrounded by clouds and mist, which looked majestic. If one looked carefully, they would find that the surface of the hall was covered with a layer of black mist, which gave people a gloomy and terrifying feeling. In the depths of the mountain range, in the territory of the illusory Blood Sea, there were groups of black-robed figures sweeping back and forth, like an inescapable net. Even the weakest of the patrolling guards possessed the terrifying aura of a peak martial saint. In fact, even a spirit Xian expert or a great master expert would have been detected if they had approached this place, much less an ordinary wild beast. At this moment, there were close to 50 figures in the hall. Every single one of them gave off an unfathomable and terrifying aura. The top experts of the entire illusory ocean of blood had gathered here because of the heaven-defying means Chu Bei had displayed in the Shuihun manor. What's the background of this guy? Mo Xiaoyao sat at the head of the table, his gaze sweeping across the experts in the hall as his brows furrowed. Reporting to Holy Lord, this person seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There was no news of him before this. A man in black robes cupped his fist towards Mo Xiaoyao and said, This person's methods are not to be underestimated. His cultivation realm is definitely not low. I'm afraid that he has cultivated some kind of extraordinary cultivation technique. The Supreme Golden City and the elusive world of immortals must have sent people. You guys should hurry over as well. You must bring this person back before they arrive. Mo Xiaoyao's voice was low, and a tyrannical aura emanated from his body, causing the tables and chairs around to vibrate. Remember, if he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. By hook or by crook, Mo Xiaoyao added. Understood, Holy Lord. Hearing Mo Xiaoyao's words, the few men in black in the hall exchanged glances and disappeared at the same time. Tianxiang Imperial City and Tianfa Forest bordered each other. Ever since the news of Chu Bei establishing the All-Heavens shop here spread, it had been packed with people. In the entire Imperial City, whether it was the children of nobles or poor commoners, they all came to register. Moreover, the surrounding cities that had heard the news also had a large number of young people swarming over. Is the owner of the All-Heavens shop really as powerful as you guys say? Even stronger than those great masters? Nonsense! How many people have seen it with their own eyes? The strength of the owner of the All-Heavens shop is simply indescribable. Then this trip is the right one. Moreover, the requirements of the All-Heavens shop for disciples are only age. There's no distinction between nobility and lowliness. Yes, this is a great thing for us poor people. They'll be standing on the same starting line as those nobles. As for how far they can go in the future, it all depends on their talent. From what I heard, the owner of the All-Heavens shop created a cultivation technique that belongs exclusively to the All-Heavens shop. The terrifying thing about this cultivation technique is that even if your talent is poor, you can still reach the Sky Xian realm in 5 years. What? 5 years to reach the Sky Xian realm? And the one with the worst talent? If that's true, then won't the All-Heavens shop become the strongest power in the continent in the future? Let's wait and see. In front of the All-Heavens shop, countless people were discussing intensely. Most of them were parents who had come to send their children to register. Senior, with my strength, can I really become the great elder of the All Heavens shop? In the All Heavens shop, Jun Wui was a little nervous. Although I established the All Heavens shop, I will be leaving soon. Moreover, I've already passed on the All Heavens shop's cultivation technique to you. It shouldn't be difficult for you to pass it on, Chubei said with a smile. Then he pointed at Jun Emosia. Emosia has my inheritance. It won't be long before he grows up. When that time comes, no one in the entire Xian continent will be his match. Jun Wui nodded. This junior will not disappoint senior. Do you think the people from the 3 Holy Lands will really come? I don't know. But since this is elder sister's order, we'll wait and see. But if even he is no match for the people from the 3 Holy Lands, can we really help? We have to help even if we can't. After all, he is the benefactor of our Tian Fa forest. Outside Tian Fa forest, Big Bear, Green Hunter, and a total of 8 Beast Kings were gathered together. They were paying attention to the All Heavens shop's situation and discussing. It wasn't just the Tian Fa forest side. The Heavens Equal Peaks Supreme Mo and Tian, the Cold-Blooded Supreme Lei Wu Bei, the Shinxiai Empire's Supreme Life and Death Chang Xiao, the Blue Sea's Supreme Meng Hongqin, the Grassland's Eagle God Solitary Falcon, and the Gale's Sword God Feng Wan Yun. The experts from the Holy Lands are here. Suddenly, the cold-blooded Lei Wu Bei's expression changed. Is it the elusive world of immortals, the great golden city, or the illusory ocean of blood? Almost at the same time, Chang Xiao, Meng Hongqin, Solitary Falcon, and the other Beast Kings all looked towards the northwest. There was a rumbling sound in the void, and a terrifying aura swept over. Big Bear and the other Beast Kings on the outskirts of Tian Fa Forest were also the first to sense it. They all looked towards the northwest with serious expressions. Chapter 725. Rumble. The void rumbled as several divine rainbows streaked across the sky from the northwest and appeared above the All Heavens shop in the blink of an eye. There were 6 figures in total, led by a stooped old man in a white robe. When they appeared above the All Heavens shop, their cold gazes swept over the crowd below, their eyes filled with disdain for the common people. Incomparably terrifying aura fluctuations emanated from their bodies, shaking the void to the point of sizzling. Who are they? They look so powerful. Are they here to visit the All Heavens shop's leader? In front of the All Heavens shop, a group of parents who had brought their children to sign up stared blankly at the 6 figures that had suddenly appeared in the sky. The elusive world of immortals. That old man's aura, I'm afraid he's already entered the Saint Emperor realm. The other 5 should be in the Saint realm. Sensing the fluctuations of the stooped old man's aura, Chang Xiao, Lei Wu Bei, and the other supremes of the human race looked at each other and exclaimed. Unlike Chu Bei, the people of the elusive world of immortals cultivated Xian Qi, so Chang Xiao and the others could guess their cultivation based on their Xian Qi fluctuations. At their level, they already had some understanding of the realms after the supremes. Above the supremes were the venerables, followed by the saints, saint emperors, saint venerables, and finally the saint monarchs. It was said that the saint monarchs were not the peak, and there were even higher realms above them. Where are the people who killed Li Ju Tian? Follow me to the elusive world of immortals. The stooped old man spoke, his powerful and majestic voice filling the entire All Heavens shop, deafening everyone. Whoosh! 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 Just as the stooped old man's voice fell, several divine rainbows streaked across the sky from the southeast and the north. These were 2 groups of people, both wearing long robes, but the colors were different. However, they both released terrifying Xian Qi fluctuations. Especially the leaders of these 2 forces, their auras were no weaker than the stooped old man from the elusive world of immortals. Your elusive world of immortals is really fast. Fortunately, we made it in time, otherwise we wouldn't be able to report back. The leaders of the two forces looked at the stooped old man from the elusive world of immortals and said with a smile almost at the same time, "The person below, listen up. My supreme golden city, illusory ocean of blood, officially sends you an invitation." The next moment, the leader of the supreme golden city and the illusory ocean of blood's low-pitched voice overpowered the previous echo of the stooped old man. "What? Elusive world of immortals, supreme golden city, illusory ocean of blood. Aren't they the three holy lands? Are they from the Holy Land?" It was said that all the top experts of the Xian continent were in the three holy lands. They are all terrifying existences that have surpassed the Supreme Being realm. Any one of them is far stronger than the 8 Supreme Beings that we are familiar with. Every time an expert reaches the pinnacle of the Supreme Being realm, they will send someone to bring that expert away. Could it be that the 3 great sacred lands have come this time to bring the All Heavens shop's manager to the 3 great sacred lands? Isn't it said that the people of the Holy Lands usually don't go out? Didn't this mean that the All Heavens shop had no leader when it was first established? Can they still become the strongest force in the continent? Hearing the words of the leader of the 3 holy lands, the crowd below was stupefied. Their discussions were full of shock. "We're in trouble now. The people from the 3 great sacred lands have all come. Not to mention the 3 leaders, even the weakest one has already stepped into the Saint realm. If they really fight, we'll only be cannon fodder if we go up. Sigh, it's a pity that the beast kings of the past have all fallen. Otherwise, they would have been able to help the All Heavens shop's manager. Now, I hope the All Heavens shop's manager can recognize the situation and find a random holy land to join." In Tianfa Forest, Big Bear, Green Hunter, and the other beast kings looked gravely at the experts of the 3 great sacred lands above Chu Bay, their expressions growing uglier and uglier. Is this the attitude of the 3 great sacred lands when inviting people? At this moment, a mocking voice sounded from the All Heavens shop. Although the voice wasn't loud, it seemed to carry an irresistible charm that clearly entered everyone's ears. Then, under everyone's gazes, ripples appeared in the air above the main hall of the All Heavens shop, and a young man in purple slowly emerged. He had a faint smile on his face as he looked at the experts of the 3 great sacred lands with a playful look in his eyes. The elusive world of immortals has always been like this. The stooped old man looked at Chu Bei expressionlessly. "Your strength has already broken through to the sovereign realm, and you're qualified to participate in the next war for seizing the heavens. Since you've entered the elusive world of immortals, it's best if you're willing, but if you're not, you'll still have to come with us." "Old man Pei Feng, you're too hasty. My supreme golden city has also taken a fancy to this guy. If we can't bring him back, it'll be difficult for me to answer to the city lord." The leader of the Supreme Golden City team glanced at Chu Bei and took a step forward. "That's a bit difficult. Our Holy Lord wants to see him if he's alive, and his corpse if he's dead." The leader of the illusory ocean of blood shrugged helplessly. Are the 3 great sacred lands so obsessed with him? But it's always been the case. His methods are too strange and heaven-defying. I just don't know which holy land he'll choose in the end. The Azure Master Meng Hongqin, the Prairie Eagle God Solitary Falcon, and the Hurricane Sword God Feng Wanyun looked at Chu Bei and spoke one after another. "I'm afraid this isn't his choice. It'll depend on which of the 3 great sacred lands is stronger. In the eyes of the 3 great sacred lands, he's probably just an object worth studying." The cold-blooded Master Lei Wu Bei seemed to have seen through the essence of this matter. He sighed faintly, as if he felt sorry for Chu Bei. "What if I don't go with you?" Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the experts of the 3 great sacred lands mockingly. "Do you think this is something you can decide?" The leaders of the 3 great sacred lands spoke at the same time. Their words revealed their contempt for Chu Bei. Then, the figures of the leaders of the 3 great sacred lands flashed at the same time towards Chu Bei. Their speed was extremely fast, as if they were afraid that the other 2 would beat them to it. Have I been underestimated to this extent? Looking at the 3 figures rushing towards him, Chu Bei's face didn't show the slightest trace of fear. He only shook his head and spoke with a self-deprecating tone. As his voice fell, Chu Bei raised his right hand and slapped forward casually. Buzz! In an instant, the void shattered inch by inch from the center of Chu Bei's palm. The terrifying attack of the leaders of the three great sacred lands hadn't even been launched yet, but an invisible force had already swept through the space around them in an instant. Then, the figures of the leaders of the three great sacred lands stopped moving forward. Accompanied by the shattering of the void, their bodies also split into countless pieces and disappeared into the twisting pitch-black gap. The people below watched this scene as if they were watching a soundless image. The leaders of the three great sacred lands didn't even have time to scream before they mysteriously disappeared. However, before they could escape, a palm print that covered the sky swept towards them. No, no! The Holy Land will not let you off! The rest of the cultivators from the three Holy Lands stared at the palm print that was sweeping towards them. Their eyes narrowed and filled with fear. But at this moment, their bodies were restrained and they couldn't move. They could only watch as the palm print got closer and closer. Bang! The palm print that covered the sky swept past the other experts from the three Holy Lands. Then, accompanied by a low explosion, the remaining experts from the three Holy Lands turned into nothingness. Dead! The three Holy Lands are dead! Completely annihilated! The explosion lingered in everyone's ears. Whether it was the Beast Kings in Tian Fa Forest, or the human supremes hiding in the sky not far away, they were all numb at this moment. What exactly is his cultivation level? Countless eyes focused on Chu Bei. This was the question in everyone's hearts. Just treat it as a show. Those who should continue to sign up. Chu Bei's calm voice drifted from the sky and into the ears of the people below. After a moment, Chu Bei looked at Tian Fa Forest. The All Heavens shop does not only recruit humans. If you are interested, the doors of the All Heavens shop are always open to you. In Tian Fa Forest, Big Bear, Green Hunter, and the other Beast Kings looked at each other when they heard Chu Bei's words. A fiery light rose in their eyes. At the same time, one of the three Holy Lands, the elusive world of immortals. Palace Master, not good! Elder Pei's mission failed. A man in black rushed into the huge palace with a lamp in his hand and a panicked expression on his face. Looking at the extinguished soul lamp in the man's hand, Duan Wuya's face darkened. With a wave of his sleeve, the soul lamp trembled and the scene before Pei Feng's death was projected. Impossible! How can he be so strong? I'm afraid he has the strength of a peak saint venerable. Seeing the scene of Pei Feng's death, before Duan Wuya could say anything, the other experts in the palace had already cried out in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. That strange expression was as if they could not believe what had happened in the image. Not only the elusive world of immortals, but the other two Holy Lands, the Supreme Golden City and the illusory Blood Sea, were also the same. The Lord of the Supreme Golden City, Butian Xie, and the Holy Lord of the illusory Blood Sea, Mo Xiao Yao, both frowned after seeing this scene. The experts of the two Holy Lands began to discuss this scene intensely. Lord, this mysterious person must be dealt with by you personally. In the Supreme Golden City, a Saint Emperor bowed to Butian Xie and said respectfully. Butian Xie did not speak, but his eyes narrowed. A terrifying aura surged out of his body and swept through the entire palace, causing the void to vibrate. Master, today's recruitment is over. In the All Heavens shop, Jun Wui walked into the room and said respectfully to Chu Bei. Ever since he saw Chu Bei make a move, his respect for Chu Bei had increased. There was even a hint of worship in his eyes. Since today's matter is over, it's time to make a trip to the three Holy Lands. Chu Bei sipped the tea in his hand and said faintly. Master, are you really going to the three Holy Lands? Jun Mo Xie asked. Although he did not know much about the three Holy Lands, it was a power that gathered all the top experts of the continent. However, just as Chu Bei's worried voice sounded, before Chu Bei could reply, the ground suddenly shook. The tremors were so powerful that the entire All Heavens shop began to sway violently like it was being tossed about by a storm. What's going on? Sensing the tremor, Jun Wuyi and Jun Mo's faces changed. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. What was going on? Why would the ground suddenly shake without any reason? In the next moment, Jun Wuyi and Jun Mo rushed out of the door and appeared on the tallest building of the All Heavens shop. As for Chu Bei, he narrowed his eyes and appeared in the sky above the All Heavens shop. Chapter 727. Why is there an earthquake? Could it be that there's a battle between experts? Look, the sect leader is in the sky. Don't panic, the sect leader is here. Nothing will happen. More and more disciples ran out of their houses and gathered in the square. Their faces were full of fear. Whoosh! 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 Several divine rainbows flew above the All Heavens shop. The leader was the Emperor of Tianfa, Mei Shuiyan. Behind her were Big Bear, Green Hunter, and the other Beast Kings. Heaven's Equal Peaks Supreme Mo Wintian, Cold-Blooded Supreme Lei Wu Bei, Shinxiai Empire's Supreme Life and Death Chang Xiao, Lan Guan Hai's Supreme Blue Meng Hongchen, Grassland's Eagle God Solitary Falcon, and Gale's Sword God Feng Wanyun. The 6 human race Supreme Masters who had not left also returned to the All Heavens shop after feeling the earth shaking. Senior, what's going on with this shaking? The cold-blooded Supreme Master Lei Wu Bei could only ask Chu Bei since he couldn't find out the reason. Mei Shuiyan and the other Tianfa experts also focused their gazes on Chu Bei, waiting for his answer. Rumble. As time passed, the shaking became more and more terrifying. The earth began to crack amidst the rumbling. Looking into the distance, countless mountains outside Tianfa forest were shaking and trembling. Huge rocks were falling down. Some of the steeper mountains were falling down. Rocks were flying, trees were collapsing, and the ground was cracking. Everything looked like the end of the world. The Tianfa Beast Kings and the human race Supreme Masters immediately used their divine senses to explore the area. However, they still couldn't find the source of the earthquake. In other words, the source was extremely far away from them. They had a feeling that this earthquake didn't only affect the Tianxiang Empire and Tianfa Forest, but the entire Xianxian continent. Could it be? No, it can't be what I think it is. Suddenly, Mei Shuiyan seemed to have thought of something. Her eyes flashed with unprecedented seriousness. She muttered to herself, and her face turned a little pale. If everything was as she thought, then the consequences would be too severe. It was so serious that she didn't even have time to prepare. It was too sudden. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath and shook her head. She did not answer the 6 supreme martial artists. Instead, she looked at Chu Bei with a perturbed expression. You're right. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains has collapsed. Chu Bei looked at Mei Shuiyan and said. Chu Bei's voice was not loud, and was extremely calm. But to Mei Shuiyan, Big Bear, and the other Tianfa experts, as well as the 6 supreme martial artists, it was like a bolt from the blue. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains was located at the end of the Xianxian continent. It was also the barrier that blocked the terrifying outsider's army. However, now that the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had collapsed, the consequences, Mei Shuiyan wasn't the only one who felt this way. The faces of the other experts turned pale as well. Their eyes were filled with fear. Why did the Pillar of Heaven's mountains suddenly collapse? It's so sudden, there's no sign at all. What the hell happened? The Tianfa Beast Kings and the Supreme Martial Artists looked at each other in dismay. The collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was a major event that would affect all living things in the Xianxian continent. Could it be caused by the outsiders? Big Bear frowned. Compared to the Xianxian continent, the environment on the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was extremely harsh. Therefore, The outsider's army was constantly thinking of conquering the living things in the Xian continent and enjoying this wonderful world. Rumble! Suddenly, the tremors on the ground intensified. At the same time, the temperature of the entire world seemed to be rising at a speed that could be felt. Big Bear, although our Tian-Fa forest is declining now, we can't retreat if the outsider's army really invades us. Immediately gather all Xian beasts above the 9th level and prepare for battle. Mei Shuiyan made a prompt decision and issued a strict order. If the Pillar of Heaven's mountains really collapsed, then the invasion of the outsider's army would be a foregone conclusion. Every minute of delay would cause immeasurable losses. Master, what are you going to do? Jun Moxia flew to Chu Bei's side and asked in the form of an undying bird. Although his soul had transmigrated to the Xian continent not long ago, but when he heard that the continent he lived in was about to be invaded by the outsider's army, an inexplicable desire to fight rose in his heart. He wanted to protect his territory. When Jun Moxia asked this question, the Tian-Fa Beast Kings and the Supreme Martial Artists looked at Chu Bei again and waited for his answer. With his strength, it wouldn't be difficult for him to conceal his identity and avoid being killed by the outsider's army. However, if he chose to fight the outsiders together with them, then their camp would undoubtedly gain a considerable amount of strength. With me here, everything will be fine. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. His indifferent words were full of confidence. Boom! Boom! After Big Bear conveyed Mei Shuiyan's instructions, all the Xian beasts in the Tian-Fa forest rushed towards the All-Heavens shop. In the sky, countless flying Xian beasts of various races covered the sky like dark clouds. Then, with a whoosh, they folded their wings and landed on the ground, returning the sky to its original clear state. Not long after, countless Xian beasts gathered in the large square in front of the All-Heavens shop. Although these Xian beasts were densely packed, they were clearly separated from each other and lined up neatly. These Xian beasts of the 9th level and above had already developed spiritual intelligence. They were all silent, but their eyes were full of fighting spirit. They knew what they were about to face and quietly waited for Mei Shuiyan's instructions. Whoosh! 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 7 figures appeared in front of Mei Shuiyan from the depths of the Tian-Fa forest. Senior Tiger Saint, Senior Deer Saint, why have you come out? Seeing these 7 figures, Mei Shuiyan's expression froze. A trace of surprise also flashed in the eyes of the other Beast Kings. The reason why we have been hanging on with our last breath is to wait for the arrival of today. The 7 Beast Kings looked at each other. Death, of course, has to be worthy of death. Judging from the current situation, the Pillar of Heaven's mountains should have collapsed. We must act in advance. Otherwise, when the strange races rush in and enter the hinterland of the continent, it will not be easy to expel them. It will be tens of thousands of times more difficult to clean up. The Deer Beast King's expression was solemn. Perhaps this really is the last war for seizing the heavens. If we win, the Xian continent will have no more worries. If we lose, the Xian continent will be doomed. The Tiger Beast King sighed. These 7 Beast Kings were ancient existences that had experienced the first war for seizing the heavens. They naturally understood the ferocity and horror of the strange races better than ordinary people. Their lives should have come to an end long ago. 1,000 years ago, they had already handed over everything in the Tian-Fa forest to Mei Shuiyan and the later generations of Beast Kings. They had only been in seclusion, relying on their last bit of life force to live. Chapter 728. Now that the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had collapsed, they did not hesitate to come out of seclusion. They were duty-bound to use up their last chance of survival in this battle. Since the first war for seizing the heavens, Tian-Fa's mission was to protect the common people. The people of the world had long forgotten about them after a long period of peace and comfort. They had also forgotten about their heroic contributions. Countless humans had even invaded Tianfa forest and slaughtered the Xian beasts. However, they still scrupulously abided by the mission that their ancestors had left behind 10,000 years ago. For the continent, for the common people, to resist the alien army. For this, they did not hesitate to sacrifice their lives. Shui Yan, give the order! Hurry to the Pillar of Heaven's mountains immediately! I wonder how the three holy lands are doing now. Every second we delay increases the danger of the Xian continent, Venerable Beast Deer said. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains collapsed, and the three holy lands were the first to bear the brunt. I wonder how much combat power they have left. What I'm most worried about now is that the three holy lands have been completely annihilated in this catastrophe, or lost too much combat power. That would be terrible. It would be difficult to win this battle with just the strength of our family. Give the order! Venerable Beast Tiger seemed to have thought of something and let out a sigh. Hearing the words of Venerable Beast Deer and Venerable Beast Tiger, Mei Shui Yan nodded heavily. But just as she was about to give the order, a bright light shrouded all the people and beasts in the field. This power, he is! In an instant, the 7 venerable beasts looked at Chu Bei with surprise in their eyes. In the next moment, resplendent light surged, and everything in the field of vision of everyone, be it man or beast, underwent a tremendous change. In the blink of an eye, the crowd and the beasts disappeared from the territory of the All-Heavens shop and came to a new area. Looking into the distance, the thick smoke in the distance covered the sky and the sun, covering the boundless land. As far as the eye could see, there were more than 30 mountains spewing out thick smoke. The battlefield for seizing the heavens! Recognizing where they were, the pupils of the 7 sovereign beasts suddenly shrank. When they looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were full of disbelief. Could that be the Pillar of Heaven's mountains? The experts of the human clan and the beast kings of Tianfa couldn't help but gasp when they saw the situation around them. When the Pillar of Heaven's mountains collapsed, they had already tried their best to overestimate the severity of this disaster, but they still did not expect the situation to be so bad. Their current location was at least 100 miles away from the collapsed Pillar of Heaven's mountains, but the oncoming heatwave was already unbearable for them. Around the collapsed Pillar of Heaven's mountains, many volcanic craters spewed out red magma endlessly. Countless huge rocks were thrown high into the sky and smashed down like meteors. It was extremely terrifying. At the end of the Xian continent, the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had collapsed. Dozens of volcanoes were leaking out a terrifying amount of energy. Under such a drastic rise in temperature, all the water sources within a radius of 10,000 miles were decreasing at a visible rate. Many areas had already begun to evaporate on a large scale, and the situation was still worsening. The human experts and Dark Beast army that had rushed over could only watch helplessly as they gazed at this terrible scene caused by the might of the heavens and the earth. And it was like they'd instantly experienced the vicissitudes of life. The visual impact of this scene, which was like the end of the world, was unparalleled, soul-stirring, and shocking. I'm afraid the 3 holy lands have suffered heavy losses this time. Mei Shui Yan frowned, and her expression was incomparably solemn. Although the nature of the 3 holy lands had changed, they were still the 3 main forces of the war for seizing the heavens. And now, the catastrophe brought about by the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains seemed to encompass all areas of the 3 holy lands. Rumble! Suddenly, a dazzling light lit up 100 miles away, accompanied by the sound of explosions and various kinds of roars. Senior, the war for seizing the heavens seems to have begun! Looking at the billowing dust and thick smoke 100 miles away, Mei Shui Yan's eyes narrowed, and she immediately looked at Chu Bei and said, at the same time, in the central region of the war for seizing the heavens. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, the billowing smoke suddenly shook, and then a figure flew out from the smoke at an extremely fast speed. He passed through the raging flames and quickly disappeared into the distance. After that figure, a total of several dozen figures quickly flew out of the sea of fire. They desperately chased after the first figure. Zhan Kuang, you colluded with the strange races. You destroyed Lord Nine Nether Seal, destroyed the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, and caused the entire Xian continent to fall into a desperate situation. Your sins are unforgivable! A furious roar came from the figure chasing behind. Looking at the person's face, it was one of the three holy lands, the palace master of the elusive world of immortals, Duan Wuya. At this moment, Duan Wuya's face was frosty, and he seemed to be unable to restrain his anger. His clothes were tattered and he actually looked quite miserable. He no longer had the majesty he had when he ordered the capture of Chu Bei at the elusive world of immortals. However, although his appearance was tattered, his eyes were like lightning, and looking at the fluctuations of his aura, it seemed that he was using some kind of self-harming method to burn his potential in order to increase his speed as much as possible, so that he could catch up to the figure in front of him. Other than Duan Wuya, the lord of the supreme golden city, Butian Xie, and the holy lord of the illusory blood sea, and Mo Xiao Yao, were also in the pursuit. Zhan Kuang, you and Lord Nine Nether were from the same era, and are both seniors of the Xian continent. But today, you are so deranged as to destroy the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and shake the foundation of the Xian continent. You deserve to die 10,000 times for your sins! Butian Xie also let out a roar, and it was like a thunderclap, shaking the space within 1,000 li. The echoes continued, and even the air seemed to tremble because of this sound. Between the heavens and the earth, ripple-like patterns appeared and then disappeared. Zhan Kuang, stop immediately! Go back to Lord Nine Nether's memorial tablet and apologize with your death. And Mo Xiao Yao's roar also reverberated between heaven and earth. However, Zhan Kuang turned a deaf ear to the roar of the three holy lands' holy lords. He continued to fly at full speed, increasing his speed instead of decreasing. After flying for another distance, suddenly Zhan Kuang stopped and turned to face Duan Wuya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and the rest. Battle situation, why aren't you surrendering? Even if we die, we will capture you and punish you. Seeing that the battle had stopped, Duan Wuya and the rest's aura rose again. A bunch of juniors, do you really think I'm afraid of you? I'm just trying to take you down more securely. Zhan Kuang's cold gaze swept over Duan Wuya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and the rest. After letting out a cold laugh, he glanced behind him and said, The Pillar of Heaven's mountains has already been destroyed, and this group of human experts has already been brought to the designated area. Do you still want this saint to continue attacking? Hearing Zhan Kuang's words, Duan Wuya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and the rest narrowed their eyes as a chill rose in their hearts. Chapter 729. Tisk, you've done well. Leave the rest to us. As for our promise to you, we will definitely fulfill it. Right at this moment, a sinister voice rang out. Following that, a humanoid creature appeared behind Zhan Kuang. This creature's appearance was very strange. It had a humanoid body, but it had two heads. From the looks of it, one was male and one was female. On top of each head, there was a golden crown. Clearly, this creature had an extraordinary status among the strange races. Kitahashi Taro, you're actually not dead yet. Duan Wuya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie recognized this creature with a single glance. Tsk, you're not dead yet, so how could I die first? However, today, I will personally send you to your deaths. Kitahashi Taro's sinister laughter rang out as another 8 figures appeared. However, these 8 figures did not stand side by side. Instead, they stood in an octagonal formation, surrounding Duan Tianya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and the rest. Not good! Quickly disperse! Recognizing these 8 figures, Duan Tianya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie seemed to have realized something as their pupils shrank. Following that, they all shouted at the same time. However, it was all too late. 1-1. With a series of strange vibrations, the bodies of the 8 strange races that appeared after Taro Kitahashi shone with dazzling divine light at the same time. They intertwined with each other and actually formed a huge square-shaped light prison, trapping Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, and the other top cultivators of the human race. Damn it! Looking at the prison walls around them, Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie all shouted at the same time, releasing an incomparably terrifying aura. This was the powerful energy of a saint monarch. Before you die, watch how our race kills all of your own kind. This continent will still be the home of my race. TSK, 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 TSK. Katahashi Taro glanced at Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, Butian Xie, and the rest in the prison and let out a low hiss, as if it was a summoning order. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Not long after Taro Katahashi's cry rang out, the ground below shook even more violently, and a series of bone-chilling screams rang out from nearby. Subsequently, a dense mass of xenorace beings surged out from the surging smoke. There were hundreds of millions of xenorace beings, and it was impossible to see the end of them. They covered every corner. Kill! Defend our homeland with our lives! Drive away these invading non-human armies! Not long after, Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, Butian Xie, and the others heard the roars of humans. It was accompanied by the magnificent brilliance of various precious techniques, as well as the sounds of divine weapons clashing against each other. As the lords of the Saint Lands, Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie had already stepped into the realm of Saint Monarchs. Their divine senses were extremely powerful, and they were naturally able to see the situation of the battlefield in the thick smoke. This time, the war for seizing the heavens was almost one-sided. Although the human race's fighting spirit was high, they didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. From the beginning, they were in a state of collapse. Under the encirclement of the non-humankind creatures, countless powerful human beings, including supremes, venerables, and holy emperors, died with hatred in their hearts. Their blood splashed across the ground. John Kwang! If not for your destruction of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, our 3 Saint Lands would have lost 80% of our strength. How would we have fallen to such a state? You deserve to die 10,000 times for your crimes. You are the sinner of the entire Xian continent. In the first war for seizing the heavens, Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie were the main forces. In the past 10,000 years, due to the human race's dominance, they had gradually forgotten their original intentions. However, in the moment when the human race was in danger, their desire to protect the Xian continent was once again ignited. Their eyes were filled with dense killing intent as they looked at the non-humankind army. Boom! They continuously attacked, even using secret techniques to burn their own origin energy to attack the light prison. However, no matter how they unleashed their terrifying attacks, the seemingly thin light prison merely rippled, and some tiny cracks vaguely appeared on it. Damn it! Duan Tianya, Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie, the 3 Saint Monarchs, all let out a low roar of unwillingness. When they were trapped in this prison, they knew that things were not going well. Although this prison looked simple, it was refined by the 8 Saint Monarchs of the non-humankind together, and it took at least several days to refine. If not for the fact that John Kwang's heinous crimes had gone to their heads, they would not have fallen into this prison so easily. Don't put up a pointless struggle. As the supreme beings of this continent, why don't you all accompany me to welcome this historic moment? Taro Northbridge glanced at the 3 figures in the prison and let out a smug laugh. Rumble, thick smoke rose from the collapsed Pillar of Heaven's mountains. From time to time, miserable screams of the human race rang out, filled with unwillingness and hatred. Good kill! Taro Northbridge laughed loudly, his voice filled with bloodlust. Do you see that? This continent will soon become our home. Taro Northbridge's voice rang out from the sky, reverberating throughout the entire Pillar of Heaven's mountains. However, before Taro Northbridge's words could receive a reply, a demonic wind suddenly blew through the battlefield. In an instant, the thick smoke dissipated. Not only that, but under this demonic wind, the erupting volcanoes seemed to have turned into dead mountains. There was no movement at all. This sudden change caused the defeated human race and the densely packed non-humankind army to fall into a momentary daze. In an instant, the entire battlefield fell silent because of the temporary ceasefire. As the thick smoke dissipated, the scene on the battlefield became clear. Tens of thousands of human corpses littered every corner of the battlefield. Crimson blood flowed, forming a river of blood. Similarly, a large number of non-humankind creatures had died, but in terms of overall numbers, the non-humankind creatures outnumbered the human race by 100 or even 1,000 times. They were not even on the same level. The energy in those volcanoes has all disappeared. What's going on? What happened? On the battlefield, the surviving experts of the human race who were more or less injured exchanged glances with each other, their eyes filled with confusion. Look at the sky. That's the palace lord of the elusive world of immortals, the holy lord of the illusory blood sea, and the lord of the supreme golden city. No wonder we didn't see them attack. They've all been trapped. Why is that human standing with the non-humankind leaders? The human race cultivators discovered Duantianya, and Mo Xiao Yao, Butianxia, and the others who were sealed by the light prison in the sky. Their faces changed. At this moment, the demonic wind blew again, and a divine phoenix appeared out of nowhere. The divine phoenix let out a cry, opening its mouth to spit out endless flames. In an instant, the battlefield was filled with a sea of flames. At first, the human race cultivators were terrified. They immediately covered their bodies with Xianqi armor to resist the burning of the sea of flames. But very quickly they discovered that these flames were different. Chapter 730. In this sea of fire, not only could they not feel the heat, they could feel the boundless aura of life. Under this formless aura of life, the injuries on their bodies began to heal at a terrifying speed. Their originally chaotic aura calmed down once again. Quick, look at those dead comrades. They're moving. There's an aura fluctuation. They're coming back to life. My God! What's going on? Could it be that the heavens have opened their eyes? The heavens have not forsaken our human race. Defend our homeland with our lives. Chase away these foreign invaders. In the sea of fire, those human experts who were already dead first began to breathe again, then their limbs began to move, until their strength was completely restored. These revived human experts were first dazed for a moment, but when they looked at those densely packed foreign race beings, their eyes were once again filled with a monstrous killing intent. Witnessing this strange scene, not only the human experts on the battlefield, but even the 9 leaders, Duantianya, and Mo Xiao Yao, Butianxia, and even Zhang Kuang, who had lived for a long time, all revealed expressions of disbelief. They all stared blankly at those revived human experts. Is it because of that fire phoenix? Is there really someone in this world who can revive the dead? As they muttered to themselves, the leaders of the foreign races and Zhang Kuang's gazes shot towards the divine phoenix. But before they could release their divine senses to examine the divine phoenix, it turned into a shadow and disappeared into the void. The divine phoenix disappeared, and in its place was a ripple. Several figures appeared in the ripple, led by a young man in purple robes. Who are these people? Could it be that the divine phoenix is related to them? That man in purple robes revived our dead comrades? Those people beside him are the 7 venerable beasts of Tian Fa Forest. That's great! Tian Fa Forest's allies have arrived. But speaking of which, where did that man in purple robes come from? Why is he with the 7 venerable beasts? And looking at where they're standing, he seems to be the leader of the 7 venerable beasts. Seeing Chu Bei's group, the human experts on the battlefield began to discuss intensely. When some experts recognized the 7 venerable beasts, joy filled their faces. Zhan Luanhui! So the main culprit behind the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was you. Venerable Deer Beast looked coldly at the figure beside Taro Kitahashi. His eating and drinking were filled with hatred, and his cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. Senior, this Jean Lun Hui was born in the same era as Lord Nine Nether. Because of his thirst for battle, he was also known as the war maniac in that era. Mei Shui-yen explained to Chu Bei. Zhang Kuang, what's his background? High up in the air, the outsider leader Taro Katahashi looked at Zhang Kuang beside him and pointed in Chu Bei's direction, his brows furrowed. This purple-clothed man who had suddenly joined the battle had truly shocked him. He could actually bring the dead back to life. If such a method could be used repeatedly, wouldn't the human race be in an invincible position? I have never seen this person before. Zhang Kuang sized up Chu Bei with an ugly expression on his face. Moreover, his aura is very strange. There isn't a single trace of Xian-Qi fluctuation. There's a different kind of energy that I've never come into contact with before. Chu Bei's hands were behind his back as he hovered in the air. He looked calmly at Taro Katahashi and Zhang Kuang, then at the prison where Duan Tianye, and Mo Xiao Yao, Butian Xie, and the rest were locked up. Boom! Instantly, the prison shattered when that beam of light reached it. At the same time, the faces of the 8 Saint Monarchs who had created the prison turned pale. It was as if they had suffered a backlash. Both of their heads spat out blood at the same time. But before they could stabilize their auras, that beam of light that had shattered the prison turned into ripples that spread out in all directions, enveloping them in an instant. At this moment, they only felt an incomparably terrifying energy that far exceeded their cultivation level, invading every corner of their bodies. Pun! Under this energy, the 8 Saint Monarchs didn't even have time to cry out before they turned into a rain of light and dissipated. Taro Katahashi's pupils shrank as he witnessed this scene. His face turned ashen, and his entire body stiffened. Zhang Kuang was also stunned. When he looked at Chu Bei again, there was a trace of fear and caution in his eyes. His entire body was as tense as a rock, and his heart was as heavy as lead. It's him. With the prison shattered, Duan Tianye, and Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie regained their freedom. At this instant, they finally recovered from their shock, and they looked at each other before taking a deep breath and exclaiming in surprise. 2 hours ago, they were still giving the order to capture this expert who had surpassed the Martial Saint realm. It was just that the mission had ended in failure. And now, seeing him in the war for seizing the heavens, their emotions were extremely complicated. Their thoughts were in a mess, and they felt numb. No matter what, they had never expected that the other party's strength had already reached such a terrifying level. Just a glance was enough to kill 8 Saint Monarchs of the Outsiders. In the Outsiders' army, these 8 Saint Monarchs were peak existences second only to Taro Katahashi. One could say that Chu Bei's single glance directly weakened 80% of the non-humankind army's threat to the humankind. Looking at the calm figure not far away, Duan Tianye, and Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie felt an inexplicable sense of relief. If not for the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, they would have personally gone to capture the other party. If that was the case, their souls and bodies would have already been destroyed. Just who are you? Zhang Kuang's entire body was tense, and his aura was condensed to the extreme. His gaze was locked onto Chu Bei. For the first time in 10,000 years, Zhang Kuang's expression revealed fear. Ever since the Nine Nether first young master left the Xian continent, he had always considered himself the #1 expert of the Xian continent. Even when facing the lords of 3 holy lands, he was still incomparably calm. But at this moment, facing this mysterious person of unknown origin without a trace of Xian-Qi, he felt a pressure that he had never felt before. This pressure was far greater than the pressure he had felt when he faced the Nine Nether first young master. As a native of the Xian continent, you actually colluded with the outsiders. You deserve to die. Chu Bei's calm voice rang out, spreading throughout the entire battlefield. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Zhang Kuang felt an inexplicable chill in his heart. Clang! And in the next moment, a metallic sound rang out, and a black sickle appeared in Zhang Kuang's hands. The sickle danced in the air, and with a loud boom, it slashed towards Chu Bei. Everywhere it passed, surging xianqi turned into a shocking storm, bringing with it all sorts of terrifying wind blades that shot towards Chu Bei. Chapter 731. That's Zhang Lun Hui's divine weapon, the Nether Scythe. From what I know, using this Nether Scythe requires a blood sacrifice. He will not use it unless he has no other choice. Looks like he really values Senior, to use his strongest move right from the start. Recognizing the black scythe in Zhang Kuang's hand, the 7 beast venerables of Tian Fa's face changed. That scythe was releasing a powerful aura. Although it was not targeted at them, it still caused them to feel a chill down their spines, unable to summon any will to resist. Duan Wuye, Mo Xiao Yao, and Bu Tianxie's gazes were also fixed on the Nether Scythe, a serious look on their faces. Looking back at Chu Bei, his expression did not change at all in the face of Zhang Kuang's Nether Scythe. He just casually raised his hand and pointed out with a simple and direct finger. There was nothing fancy about it. Under countless gazes, a beautiful fingertip light collided with the black scythe in the air. Kacha! With a crisp sound, the Nether Scythe shattered. But this was just the beginning. Before the surrounding experts could react, the fingertip light that shattered the black scythe continued forward, arriving before Zhang Kuang in an instant. Zhang Kuang's eyes widened. Without any hesitation, he raised his hands and used his xianqi to create a sturdy wall of light in front of him. Qi La! But it was a pity that in front of Chu Bei's fingertip light, this wall of light was even more fragile than the black scythe. In that instant, the fingertip light shattered the wall of light and shot into Zhang Kuang's body. And the moment the fingertip light entered Zhang Kuang's body, his body began to swell. His expression twisted in pain, and with a loud boom, his soul exploded. From Chu Bei's finger to Zhang Kuang's death, this entire process seemed long, but in reality, it happened in the blink of an eye. All tribesmen listen to my orders, retreat immediately. Seeing this scene, Taro Katahashi did not hesitate. The moment Zhang Kuang's body exploded, he gave the order to the outsiders' army below. Why? Are you afraid? But before Taro Katahashi could escape into the void, Chu Bei's mocking voice drifted through the air. Almost at the same time, Taro Katahashi realized that the space around him had been sealed by a powerful invisible force. If you let me go this time, I promise that I will never invade the Xian continent again, Katahashi Taro said in a terrified voice. Chu Bei smiled but did not respond. Noticing Chu Bei's expression, Taro Katahashi snorted coldly. Although he knew that he was no match for the other party clearly didn't want to let him go. Since that was the case, he could only fight to the death. Screech! Katahashi Taro's 2 heads simultaneously let out a strange and sharp screech. In the next moment, its entire body was covered with demonic runes, and its neck wrinkles protruded. Drops of blood seeped out of its body and began to burn. Not only that, but the pupils on Taro Katahashi's 2 heads had also turned crimson. Just one look at them was enough to send chills down one's spine. As the blood on Taro Katahashi's body burned, it exploded with a terrifying light. His aura also grew stronger and stronger, and it felt like he was about to break through the barrier of the great sage realm. Compared to Zhang Kuang, Taro Katahashi seemed even stronger. Burning his origin blood? Has the leader been forced to this extent? Has that human really reached such a terrifying state? Could it be that he's already comparable to that 9 Nether from 10,000 years ago? Why hasn't such a person appeared in the past battles? Perhaps he's the last guardian of the human race. If we hadn't colluded with Zhang Kuang to destroy the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, he probably still wouldn't have made a move. On the battlefield below, the group of Saint Venerables looked at Taro Katahashi and then at Chu Bei, their expressions grim. Kill! Taro Katahashi's body was enveloped in red light as his 2 heads merged into one. Then, he used a secret technique to transform his head into a giant axe and swung it at Chu Bei. At this moment, facing Chu Bei, he could only burn his origin blood and sublimate himself to the extreme. He knew that he couldn't win. But even if he died, he had to hurt Chu Bei's foundation. As Taro Katahashi transformed into a giant axe, the space around him froze. Rumble! The blade light was resplendent, and its sharp aura tore through the void. It was extremely powerful. The axe was infused with various secret techniques, and terrifying mystic energy interweaved. Chu Bei glanced at Taro Katahashi, who was sparing no effort to kill him, and swung his hand down. Bam! In an instant, the space that Taro Katahashi had frozen shattered inch by inch, and a giant palm that blotted out the sky landed on Taro Katahashi's body. Unsurprisingly, Taro Katahashi's body was annihilated by this palm. Not even his ashes were left. Even in death, Taro Katahashi could not imagine that everything he had done, including burning his origin blood essence, had not been able to harm Chu Bei at all. He's dead! The leader is also dead! Taro Katahashi's death struck the alien army below like a bolt of lightning. It was as if they had been injected with icy water from head to toe. Their faces were stiff and numb, without a trace of blood. Retreat, retreat quickly! As long as we stay alive, we'll be able to avenge our leader one day. That's right, our lifespan is much longer than these humans. After the alien army recovered from their shock, they hurriedly turned around and rushed back in the direction they had come from. Chi, chi, chi. But before they could get far, there was a sharp cry, and a black bird with 4 wings appeared in the sky. The bird spat out tens of thousands of sharp black arrows from its mouth. Each arrow carried with it a terrifying energy fluctuation. As the black arrows tore through the air, they fell like a torrential downpour, instantly killing all the fleeing alien army. Not a single one was left alive. When the black bird transformed into a stream of light and entered Chu Bei's body, the boundless battlefield suddenly quieted down. There was only a group of human experts who had yet to recover from their shock, as well as the flesh and blood of the alien army that was scattered all over the ground. It's over. Gradually, the group of human clan experts came back to their senses. Looking at the flesh and blood on the ground, they all took a deep breath. Their faces were a little dazed as if they didn't know what to do. They were like people who had been struck by lightning and looked like clay sculptures. The 7 beast masters of the Tian Fa forest looked at each other in dismay. Each of them was dumbfounded. They looked at each other in silence at first. Then, they shook their heads and laughed bitterly. Their laughter seemed to contain some self-mockery. They had come out of seclusion aggressively, condensing their last bit of blood chi, and wanted to end the battle. But in the end, they had not even stepped onto the battlefield, and the war for seizing the heavens had been settled by the leader of the All Heavens shop alone. It was really laughable. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.